He was in truth the most savage and apex predator within the Taihang Mountain range, yet in the hearts of the people he was regarded as the guardian deity of the great mountain. This was because over a century ago, when he underwent his tribulation here, the floods he unleashed nearly swept away the village at the foot of the mountain. Once he realized this, a mere shift in his consciousness was enough to dissipate the torrential rain. It was for this reason that, seeing the giant, winding entity in the distance, the people dared not call him a snake, referring to him only as a deity. The heavy rain ceased and the floodwaters receded. I raised my head to look at them once and then vanished into the depths of the Taihang Mountains, and thus they came to call me the mountain god. Following the flood, the villagers even dedicated themselves to constructing a temple, worshipping a statue of a coiled serpent. In the blink of an eye, 100 years have passed. Now the very last villager who knows of my existence is nearing death due to illness. Bearing the intent to bid farewell to an old friend, I quietly approach the pond near the village. Although there is nothing on this land that poses a threat to me, I know all too well the treachery and greed of mankind, and thus I remain ever cautious. At this moment, Lin Yuxiang's life was flickering like a lamp running low on oil. He lay on a rattan chair, tapping his stomach gently, his mind drifting back to the mountain god. He had been only 20 years old when that great flood struck, yet he would never forget the mountain god's undulating body and those golden pupils. But since that day, he had never seen the mountain god again. Now, he was the only person left in the village who knew of the mountain god's existence. He wondered whether the villagers would continue to tend to the temple after his passing. Just as he sighed inwardly, the chickens, ducks, and dogs in the yard suddenly began to clamor. Lin Yuxiang felt a strange premonition. Slowly making his way to the stream behind his courtyard, and seeing my old friend, I revealed my true form directly from the water. Looking at the dying old man before me, my long-stilled heart felt a ripple of emotion. Once this old man passes, there will truly be no one left in this world who remembers me. Lin Yuxiang raised his trembling hands as if intending to embrace me. But as I lowered my body, the old man did not embrace me. Instead, he knelt in prostration and then failed to raise his head again. Seeing this, I felt a deep sense of helplessness. I do not know what I possess that is worthy of being remembered. After an indeterminate amount of time, Lin Yuxiang slowly raised his head. The mountain deity before me had already vanished from his spot, leaving behind only a single scale the size of a newborn infant floating in the air. After meeting Lin Yuxiang, I followed the river's flow and departed from the village. Soon enough, I returned to my hidden sanctuary. It was a lake, and the ancient tree situated on the island at its center had been my home for 200 years. As I pulled myself onto the bank, my colossal body stirred the river, sending layers of ripples outward. Following this, I climbed up onto the ancient tree. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the canopy, striking my scales and causing my entire body to glisten with a translucent luster. I then lay prone upon a thick branch, lost in deep contemplation. I did not truly know what I was, perhaps a monster or perhaps a divine beast from the ancient myths. In over 200 years on the Taihang Mountains, I had never encountered one of my own kind, nor had I ever discovered a presence more powerful than my own. Therefore, I have reigned supreme over this vast mountain range for nearly 2 centuries. Originally, I had intended to live a life of quiet indifference as a serpent, but the calamity a century ago had fundamentally altered my perspective. That tribulation granted me spiritual consciousness, and eventually, it allowed me to become one with the great mountain itself. The living creatures in this domain no longer view me as a predator, but as the living embodiment of the Taihang Mountains. I have had a vague premonition that a great event is on the horizon, and this intuition has only intensified in recent days, yet no matter how I ponder it, I cannot find a singular lead. However, regardless of what may come, I remain the undisputed sovereign of these mountains. Lost in these wandering thoughts, I drifted into slumber, my entire serpentine body slowly coiling tighter. Meanwhile, at the village entrance several miles away, Lin Yuxiang's son, Lin Jiqiang, stepped into the village with a cunning gait. He had spent over a decade drifting through the imperial capital, not only failing to earn a fortune but accruing hundreds of thousands in gambling debts. He should have perished in the gambling den, but it so happened that the casino master was currently obsessed with local folklore, and Lin Jiqiang recalled the legends of the mountain deity that Lin Yuxiang had recounted years prior. Relying on this legend, he managed to temporarily preserve his life. The casino master released him to return and uncover clues regarding the mountain deity. Lin Jiqiang could well imagine his own fate should he fail to find them. Soon, Lin Jiqiang pushed open the door and entered his home. The moment he stepped inside, he sensed a chilling, ominous aura. He called out his wife's name loudly, yet he received no response. Everything within the room seemed as if it had withered away into death. Suddenly, he seemed to catch sight of something, and the scream in his throat choked off instantly. In the blink of an eye, the hour grew late. As night fell, a small, white fox suddenly appeared on the tranquil Kingshan Lake. The fox trod across the surface of the lake, making its way toward the center of the island. Sensing a terrifying aura as heavy as a mountain emanating from the depths of the lake, it realized it had finally located the existence it sought. As it crossed the water to climb onto the island, it was horrified to find that all sound had vanished. On the towering camphor tree before it, the patterns of dragon and snake seemed to writhe and coil. The next second, a thunderous boom descended upon its head. Following that, the sound of scales, howling winds, and the groaning of the tree trunk erupted simultaneously, forcing the white fox to recoil 2 steps. Coiled upon the tree, I assessed this white fox. In truth, I had sensed it the moment it appeared at the mountain's edge by the lake. I could not comprehend how it had crossed the lake's surface to reach this place. Could it be that the variables of fate have finally begun to stir? The fox seemed to perceive my thoughts. A hazy white light began to surge from its body. In the following instant, a girl draped in white robes appeared in its place. She immediately bowed low, speaking, "Master of the Taihang Mountains, I was bold enough to employ a concealment technique. I pray you do not take offense." Yet another being using a title akin to a mountain deity. Humans calling me this is one thing, but why would a sentient white fox do the same? Seeing that I, Chen Chen, offered no reply, the white-clad girl continued, "Would you be willing to travel to the northern reaches of Taihang?" I did not answer her, choosing instead to remain coiled upon the tree, silently gazing down at her. Observing this, the girl in white persisted, "A fierce tiger is rising in those lands." This time, I finally understood the intent behind her words. She wished for me to go to the north of Taihang to stop the rise of this savage beast. My crimson body remained motionless upon the tree, neither expressing agreement nor signaling a refusal. The rise of a fierce beast is a choice made by nature, and I do not believe I have the right to intervene. The Taihang Mountains are vast. In 200 years, I have not even fully traversed them. If other life forms here grow powerful, it is merely the choice of these mountains and forests. Furthermore, how could there be only one creature rising to prominence? Should I be expected to slaughter every single one that appears? To stand in awe of nature is my own enlightenment as a great serpent. Seeing my lack of reaction, the girl spoke again. "Once that fierce tiger emerges, it will slaughter every human it encounters. I implore you to go and save them." Hearing this, I extended my slender neck from the shadows of the ancient tree, my jade-like crimson scales opening and closing rhythmically with my breath. The girl in white felt herself enveloped by a resonant metallic chime, and seeing my gaze fixed upon her, a ferocious beast wreaking havoc upon the world is not something I can simply ignore. The slaughter of the innocent is one matter, but the rise of a new life force is quite another. The iron torrents of humanity are not something that mere flesh and blood can withstand. If this ferocious beast stirs up such immense trouble for mankind, will it eventually drag me into its mess and force me to abandon this great mountain? At this moment, in the northern reaches of the Taihang Mountains, a majestic tiger tilts its head toward the heavens and lets out a thunderous roar. Its fur burns like flowing flames, and the black stripes upon its coat resemble the markings of a demon from the underworld. It gazes impassively into the distance toward the foot of the mountain, the domain of humanity. As its breathing grows increasingly heavy, its bones and muscles begin to contort, as if the very shackles within its body are being shattered. It knows well that at this very moment it is undergoing a profound transformation. Once it has completely cast off these heavy chains, it will finally be able to embark on the path of strength to exact its vengeance. Deep within the Taihang Mountains, the tiger clan was once sparse but immensely formidable. They were meant to be the monarchs of these peaks, yet suddenly they all perished. When it was but a cub, it witnessed with its own eyes the hunters descending upon its mother's lifeless body. Its siblings rushed forward in a vain attempt to intervene, only to offer up their own pelts in futile sacrifice. It survived by sheer fortune, only to discover that it was the last tiger remaining across the entire mountain range. Thus it swore an oath, once it shed its shackles and attained true power, it would slaughter every last human it laid eyes upon. Now its transformation reaches a critical juncture, as the essence and blood throughout its body dissolve, fueling its evolution with pure primal energy. The ferocious tiger cries out in agony, its roar echoing toward the heavens. In the very next instant, a terrifying bolt of lightning descends from the sky. The strike hits the ferocious beast with unerring precision. After a long while, the dark clouds disperse and the wounds covering the tiger's body begin to knit together rapidly under the moonlight. At this moment, its blood is no longer mere fluid, it is a shimmering crown signifying its ascension to the throne. Having completed its transformation, the beast feels its body surging with newfound power. The time for vengeance has arrived. With that thought, it lunges toward the village without hesitation, yet it is suddenly brought to a halt by the sound of rushing water. In the blink of an eye, a colossal red serpent rises from the depth, looking at the brother who has successfully completed its metamorphosis before me. I cannot help but feel a sense of relief. Fortunately, I arrived in time, otherwise this stretch of forest would surely be doomed, while the white fox beside me appears deeply conflicted. This ferocious tiger once saved the fox from the hands of hunters. Thus, the tiger is its benefactor. That is precisely why it sought me out. Because it knows that if the tiger were allowed to slaughter humanity, an eternity of ruin would surely be its fate. At this moment, the tiger senses the weight of my presence pressing down upon it like an immovable mountain, though it does not yet know the reason for my arrival. However, when predator meets predator and neither chooses to retreat, then the only path remaining is the path of slaughter. Thus it lunged at me without a moment's hesitation, yet in an instant, my massive body had tightly coiled around it. Gazing at the struggling beast, a long-dormant hunger suddenly surged within me. But just as I opened my gaping maw, prepared to swallow it whole, the white fox suddenly cried out toward me, imploring the mountain spirit to spare the life of this ferocious tiger. Hearing this, I turned my head toward her, my savage serpentine expression filled with indifference. The white fox, sensing that I was waiting for her to plead her case, hurriedly began to fabricate a story regarding this ferocious tiger and its past. I knew the fox feared I would consume the tiger outright, so I waited to see what bargaining chip she could produce. something that might compel me to willingly release the living feast held within my grasp. Seeing this, the white fox understood my intentions in a heartbeat, and with a solemn expression she spoke. Great king, I am willing to sacrifice the path I have walked, in exchange for a path of survival for him. Upon hearing this, I first cast a glance at the ferocious tiger, then turned to assess the white fox before me. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, an indescribable sensation, impossible to articulate, suddenly manifested from the depths of my heart. At this moment, the white fox let out a soft laugh, and then she began to chant a sequence of characters, recounting her tale to me. This was the path she spoke of, while the ferocious tiger growled softly at her side, attempting to intervene. Clearly, these two beasts had only met once before. Why would the white fox be willing to sacrifice her own essence for it? The mountains remained silent and gentle. I had clearly not agreed to this transaction, yet she chose this path regardless. To me, mountain spirit is merely a title. Returning to the mountains is synonymous with returning to the natural cycle of the world. Once the white fox finished speaking, specks of white light rose from her body, and she collapsed to the ground, unconscious. What struck me with astonishment was that the light did not dissipate across the mountains, but instead descended upon my own massive crimson form. The moment the faint white light touched my deep red scales, it was like a single drop of water falling into a vast ocean. In that instant, I understood. The mountains had granted the white fox's request, and I was merely the vessel through which the mountains acted. After a moment of silence, I spoke to the ferocious tiger. If you still choose the path of slaughtering innocent life, I shall not stand in your way again. But her path will have been sacrificed in vain. At this, the terrifying aura of the ferocious tiger vanished, and it simply bowed its head, watching the slumbering white fox intently. I then added, only you are to cease the slaughter of innocent creatures. The ferocious tiger paused for a moment, appearing to grasp my meaning, and then its eyes overflowed with profound joy. Qingyan, this was the name she had bestowed upon me. Having said this, I turned and submerged myself back into the river. I must depart for a certain location now. I have no time to play house with a kitten. According to the memories imparted to me by the fox, the rise of a life form typically requires a catalyst. This is the crucial key to unlocking the path of ascension, and in the place where the fox resided, such a catalyst exists. Only when this catalyst has reached maturity and the fruit is consumed can the ascension truly begin. Yet, within my own memories, I have never consumed any such thing as a catalyst. Therefore, I am compelled to see exactly what this catalyst truly is. Meanwhile, Lin Yuxiang discovered the stiffened corpse of his father, along with the scale I had gifted him. Ignoring the cold remains of his father, Lin Yuxiang cradled the scale with a look of manic delight. Gazing at the palm-sized scale in his grasp, he knew his life had been spared. The mountain god of Taihang truly existed. Following this, he rummaged through the house and unearthed an old book. It was a manuscript Lin Yuxiang had written years ago, and its contents were recordings regarding the mountain god. Having secured what he desired, Lin Zhiqiang buried his father carelessly in the backyard, proceeded to loot every coin of wealth from the house, and then, carrying his belongings, departed from the village without so much as a backward glance. A day later in the imperial capital, a man draped in a black trench coat stood atop a skyscraper surveying the nightscape. The young woman standing behind him was examining the scale with meticulous care. After a moment, Gu Chuchu spoke. The master of this scale is an awakened entity, and furthermore one of the most powerful currently in existence. At this, Gu Yan also spoke. The researchers under my command state that the owner of this scale is likely a serpent between 20 and 25 meters in length, and they have already tested it with firearms. The hardness of this scale is extraordinary. Unless one utilizes heavy weaponry, it would be no different from scratching an itch for such a creature. We are searching for the catalyst. There is no need to provoke such a being. Hearing this, a look of near-maniacal fervor surged in the girl's eyes. But why do you not consider how magnificent it would be to create such an existence? The man remained silent for a long moment before turning around. Once Gu Chuchu had set her sights on something, she would obtain it, even if it meant bloodshed. This was a side effect caused by her consumption of an immature catalyst during her childhood. The loss of her emotions could never be mended, and so it transformed into a terrifying obsession. Contemplating this, the man spoke with a sigh. I shall grant you half of the personnel. Hearing this, the girl smiled gently. Then you have an 80% chance of success. At this moment, deep within a cave in the Taihang Mountains, I lay coiled upon a smooth boulder in the ravine, waiting in silence. Before me, a blue flower bud was reaching full maturity. This was the very medium mentioned in the fox's memories. Back then, I had consumed one, leaving this second one to ripen. Now, I could state with absolute certainty that I had never consumed such a medium before. Yet these mediums were clearly the key to the awakening of all living beings, and as the most powerful entity in the Taihang Mountains, I found it strange that I did not even know what I was. The information I possessed was truly insufficient. Aside from knowing how to fight, I seemed to understand nothing else. Because I was unsure if a life form could only consume a single critical medium, I did not act impulsively to consume it. I decided to wait for this flower to bloom fully, and then scour the mountains to find other mediums for comparison. With that thought, I curled up on the boulder and drifted off to sleep. Several days later, at the entrance of the Taihang Mountain village, Lin Zhiqiang led several dozen men back to the village, but the villagers did not greet him with kind faces this time. Because the village valued tradition, the elderly who had passed away were buried haphazardly, without coffins, tombstones, or proper funeral rites. This was considered a blatant act of unfilial conduct. Lin Jiqiang never expected to return alive, nor could he fathom why Gu Yanwang wanted him to act as a guide. Yet thinking of the reward that would secure his livelihood for the rest of his days, he chose to remain silent. Upon entering the village, Gu Chuchu suddenly looked up toward the distant, massive mountain, only to return to her normal expression a few seconds later. Meanwhile, I had awakened from my slumber, coinciding perfectly with the ripening of the medium. I saw the blue flower bud blossoming into a shape reminiscent of a narcissus, radiating an icy, bone-chilling aura. Over the past few days, many ferocious beasts had come to investigate, but upon sensing my presence, they had all chosen to retreat in silence. I lowered my head to inhale the floral scent, then turned and departed from that place. I could have chosen to harvest the medium, but I did not intend to do so. These mountains nourish me, just as they nourish all other creatures. To me, this medium is of little consequence, but to another living being, it might represent a transcendence, a shedding of one's mortal coil. To claim it all for myself would be too greedy. This is not merely a law of nature, but my own code of conduct. Returning to the base of the ancient camphor tree on the island in the middle of the lake, I discovered Jiang Hu lying on the grass, licking its claws. Seeing this, I spoke with a face full of suspicion. How did you manage to find this place? Is it possible that you know who I am? Hearing this, the fierce tiger replied in astonishment, Master of the Taihang Mountains, who among all the living beings in these ranges does not know you? It then informed me that while this hiding spot of mine was indeed concealed, it meant little to those whose life force had truly awakened. Hoping you might be mindful of such things, I offered a polite word of thanks, then proceeded to ask the purpose of its visit. A group of uninvited guests has arrived in the mountains recently. I suspect they were drawn here by the scent. The one leading them carries your aura upon him. Hearing this, my snake-like face grew ferocious as I coldly asked, what chance of victory do you think they have? The green python first shook its head, which was the size of a piece of amber, and then replied, on the surface they have none at all, but that woman leading them carries a sensation about her that is extremely unsettling. They would not have ventured so deep into these mountains without absolute certainty. Hearing this, I let out a silent chuckle. It seemed that despite my utmost caution, I had still invited the prying eyes of humanity. If that is the case, there is no choice but to take the initiative. Bidding farewell to the green python, I approached the village silently and without a trace. There I hid within the shadows, observing those countless loathsome ants. The green python said it felt my aura, which was the scale I had left with the old man previously, and I also recognized Lin Jiqiang. Naturally, I would not wait for them to find my doorstep. Slaughter is a mandatory lesson for the serpent kind. Before becoming an apex predator, I relied on the patience of waiting for the prey to enter my hunting circle. After entering the mountains, the dozens of men produced professional military gear, some even donning bulletproof vests. Furthermore, each of them carried a wooden box strapped to their backs. I surmised that this was the reliance that gave them the courage to enter the mountains, as the path they were taking led directly to my hiding place. By now, my attention was no longer on these men, but locked firmly onto the girl in the black dress, surrounded by the burly men. The aura surrounding her was completely distinct from that of a mortal. This must be their second line of reliance. But such things are far from enough. I engaged my fearsome muscles, dragging my colossal body as I vanished from the spot. They should never have come to these great mountains, for this entire expanse is my hunting ground. For intruders, there is only one path, death. The deeper they ventured, the dimmer the light became. From the moment he entered the mountains, Lin Jiqiang's heart had been clouded with a sense of impending doom. He could not shake the feeling that something was watching him from the shadows. He shook his head violently, forcing himself to banish the distracting thoughts. Even if the mountain truly harbored the mysteries told in legends, surely it could not withstand modern weaponry. There was no creature in this world that could not be dispatched by gunfire. Lin Jiqiang convinced himself there was nothing to fear, yet the mountain wind grew colder, and a torrential downpour suddenly broke through the clear sky. Gu Chuchu's expression turned grave. She knew that existence had arrived. A low rumble of thunder rolled across the heavens, followed by thousands of tons of rain cascading down upon the mountain range. In an instant, the heavy downpour blurred their vision. The unease in Lin Jiqiang's heart erupted into sheer terror. He felt as though he could hear something chanting softly amidst the rain. Ignoring the twisted look of panic on Lin Jiqiang's face, Gu Chuchu fixed her gaze upon a point within the downpour. At that moment, a massive crimson entity rose from the rain, and they heard the metallic friction of scales shifting against one another. Facing eyes that burned like molten gold, everyone felt as if a great mountain were pressing down upon their spines. After a brief moment of shock, someone lost their composure and opened fire. The dark barrels spat tongues of flame into the falling rain. Yet as they fired, they realized their companions were vanishing one by one, as if the torrential rain itself had become a demon hungry for their lives. Lin Jiqiang collapsed to the ground, clutching his head and wailing. Lacking any formal training, he had been completely paralyzed by the overwhelming pressure. Yet the young girl seemed not to hear him at all. She spread her arms toward the colossal red silhouette, as if attempting to embrace the behemoth. I am fond of you. Could you refrain from causing any more chaos? I shall take you away from this place. The young girl noticed that after she issued her invitation, the creature did not cease its slaughter. Her expression darkened with displeasure, and she spoke again, Become my pet and follow me out of this place. The reply was a chilling, ghostly laugh. The sound resonated from the creature's throat like the churning of thunder, and the rain intensified. Seeing this, Guchuchu's smile vanished, and with a stoic face, she uttered, "Disobedience will only bring you suffering." In response, the red shadow lashed out with its vicious, elongated tail. As the tail slammed into the earth, the girl stepped lightly onto the bone-chilling appendage. At this moment, a brilliant silver light ignited in the depths of Guchuchu's eyes. Her exquisite petite face set in a look of grim determination, and from her lips flowed the 18 forbidden characters of the archaic tongue. "May you perish, phantom." As the words fell, the wooden boxes, everyone following that, dozens of ancient swords ascended into the sky, piercing through the curtain of rain mid-air, before gathering behind the young woman. They trembled slightly, as if hungering for the flesh and blood of living beings. Guchuchu gazed at the crimson serpent amidst the clouds with neither joy nor sorrow, as if she were looking at a lifeless object. The next instant, at the young woman's command, the 18 ancient swords transformed into a long dragon, surging straight toward the serpent's head. However, behind that bronze-red demon mask, within the burning golden flames, there was nothing but disdain. The serpent's body hissed and coiled, its scales relaxing slowly with each breath. The moment the tips of the ancient swords struck the scales, a piercing metallic screech instantly echoed through the air. These ancient swords appeared formidable, but was that truly all they were capable of? Seeing this, Guchuchu frowned slightly. This creature was far stronger than she had anticipated. Although each of these ancient swords was no mundane weapon, their tips could not even leave a single scratch upon its scales. Thus Guchu began to consider a retreat, for against an invincible foe, she was not foolish enough to throw her life away. Yet it was then that Guchuchu realized they had been severed from the rest of the world. Every falling raindrop was sealing off this land. It turned out they were never the hunters, but mere playthings for a sovereign seeking amusement. It had been a long time since Guchuchu had been in such dire straits. Since there was no escape, she would cast aside all caution and gamble everything. With a flick of her hand, the ancient swords began to strike the subordinates she had brought with her. She was offering blood to nourish the blades. Those slain by the swords were reduced to withered mummies in the blink of an eye. Lin Jiqiang curled up against the base of a slick tree, his tears and mucus mingling together, as he watched what seemed to be a world gone mad. Suddenly, not far away, came the sound of a sharp blade piercing flesh, and a few droplets of blood splattered onto the ground before the man's eyes. Instinctively, Lin Jiqiang looked up, only to discover that Guchuchu had been run through the chest by a blazing red bone spike. She was dead, perished due to her own ignorance and folly. The torrential rain ceased, and those who had accompanied Lin Jiqiang vanished. He remained huddled in place, too terrified to move. Lin Jiqiang wondered to himself, had the mountain deity of Taihang Mountains spared his life? The next moment, he descended the mountain to search for his elder. Due to the sudden heavy rainfall in the Taihang Mountain range, citizens are advised to limit travel and prioritize their safety. Inside the black water crystal building, the man pressed the remote control with a stoic expression. He then turned to face the individuals gathered at the long conference table behind him. These people were the elders of the Gu clan. Some leaned back in their chairs, while others were even tethered to oxygen tanks. They had come to hold Gu Yan accountable, for Gu Suosuo, the most gifted talent of the younger generation, had gone missing. At that moment, an old man leaning on a cane spoke up with a frigid expression. "How could you let Suosuo leave for the Taihang Mountains at such a critical juncture, knowing how vital she is? Now we do not even know if she is among the living or the dead." Gu Yan could only bow his head and endure the reprimand, not daring to show even a hint of resentment. Just then, another elder intervened. "Fourth brother, calm yourself. Do not let your anger damage your health. We are all well aware of Yanner's capabilities. Otherwise, we would not have entrusted the clan's affairs into his hands." As the voice faded, Gu Yan's grandfather spoke in a low, heavy tone. "When Suosuo went to the Taihang Mountains, she carried the 33 absolute killing swords." Upon hearing this, the other elders were astonished. If she possessed the absolute swords, there was no need to be overly concerned for her safety. Seeing this, Gu Yan did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly explained the full origin of the situation. Having heard his account, the elders collectively breathed a sigh of relief. Perhaps Suosuo had merely stumbled upon a great opportunity in the Taihang Mountains. At this time, Gu Yan continued his report. The Zhao and Li families are aware that Gu Suosuo went to Taihang, and shortly after, a terrifying anomaly occurred within the Taihang Mountains. They are currently pressuring us. Should we disclose any of this information? After a brief discussion, the group decided that they could reveal a moderate amount of detail, but the extent of the disclosure would be left to Gu Yan's own discretion. Meanwhile, I was resting leisurely, coiled upon an ancient camphor tree. The Taihang Mountains were being blockaded intentionally. This was because, in recent days, the number of people venturing into the mountains from the outside had surged. Although I had summoned torrential rain for several days in a row, many teams still managed to break through the blockade. Among them were not only members of the Gu clan but also individuals from the Zhao and Li families of the imperial capital. Thinking of this, I let out a long, weary sigh. Although it is natural for humanity to take notice as the great mountain revives and spiritual life flourishes, this escalation is occurring far too quickly. For now, humanity has only dispatched ordinary people, but in the future even more formidable awakened beings may appear. That girl's cultivation path was already quite advanced. It is difficult to guarantee that even more powerful figures will not emerge. With this thought, I exerted a sliver of my spiritual intent. Immediately, dozens of ancient swords rose from the mud of the island into the air, gathering in a circle around the ancient camphor tree. After Gusuoso's death, the ancient swords became ownerless objects, and so naturally they had become my spoils of war. For the past several days, I have been nourishing them with my own serpent blood. Under the influence of my blood, the murderous aura radiating from these young ones has become even more formidable. I can sense the insatiable bloodlust stirring within them. After all, having gone 1,000 years without tasting fresh flesh and blood, it is truly a torment for swords forged in slaughter. Just at this moment, news arrived through the rain. A rising figure had led a group into the Great Mountains. Yet, this group was not heading in my direction, but was marching straight toward Mount Wutai. At this time, the temples of Mount Wutai were also shrouded in an endless torrential downpour. The abbot, clad in his kasaya, chanted a Buddhist prayer before speaking. When a person dies, the lamp goes out. I asked the benefactor to restrain their grief. Guyan, standing opposite him, clenched his fists instantly, his expression sinking into the depths of despair. The white-robed old man beside him maintained a calm gaze, showing neither joy nor sorrow. The abbot of the ancient temple and the old man shared a deep friendship from their youth. The ever-bright lamp, kept in the temple through secret Buddhist techniques, reflected the lifespan of Gususu. But today the lamp indicated that Gususu had perished within the Taihang Mountains. Having obtained the information they sought, the grandfather and grandson walked out of the great Buddhist hall in silence. It was then that the abbot's voice echoed from behind them. The one who carries the spirit within these mountain ranges will depart soon. I do not hope for your safety. The old man paused for a moment, then replied in a clear, resonant voice, "This place is fine, but there is no need to stay here for long. Master, please rest assured and depart, for one day upon our return everything will be easily reclaimed." Several more days passed, and recently the number of intruders has only increased. They recklessly ravage the forests and mountains, slaughtering living beings and plundering every spiritual artifact they can lay their eyes on. I coiled myself upon the familiar ancient tree, feeling a rare touch of fatigue. I have buried all those evildoers within this land, and stains of blood that will never fade remain upon the ancient swords. There was even a terrifyingly powerful old man who managed to track me down. The old man engaged me in a fierce, prolonged battle only to be slain by my blade in the end. He claimed to be an elder of the Gu family, and that he had to see to the clan's stability. He believed that once he had settled all family affairs, he could rightfully avenge his descendants as an elder. He had made thorough preparations, so there was nothing to be said of his failure. After he attempted to kill me, no one even knows my name, and everything has ended with me. If there remains resentment in your heart, and your anger has not yet subsided, believing that our Gu family has committed a grave offense, you may proceed to sever our bloodline. I shall harbor not a shred of hatred. The old man closed his blood-stained eyes and spoke his final words. I offer you this one last respect as a mountain god. If you can still heed one piece of advice from this old man, leave this place immediately. This is a land of turmoil. You cannot hold on to it. Thinking back to this, I let out a deep, heavy sigh. My spirits reside within the rain. These spirits are not inexhaustible, nor can they be used without end, but even with the assistance of the mountain range, maintaining them day and night has gradually become a struggle. Knowing full well they cannot escape these vast mountains, they still come one after another, sacrificing immense manpower and resources. Driven to such madness, what exactly is the puppet master behind them seeking? The old man's dying counsel has formed a lingering shadow in the depths of my heart. Mount Taihang is a land of turmoil, and I cannot hold it, but why did the old man believe I could not preserve the Gu family's imperial path? Though they have departed, more people arrive with every passing day. I can even sense a green toad risen from the outside world, lurking deep within the great mountains. It is as if these mountains hold something that drives the outside world to madness. Everyone wishes to enter, yet some advise me to leave. I have pondered this repeatedly, yet I cannot grasp the reason why. At this moment, Qingyan approached the base of my ancient camphor tree and dropped the man it held in its mouth at the roots. Afterward, Qingyan began to lick the fur on its paws. Feeling creatures dislike water, the sensation of damp fur clearly caused it discomfort. The man, tossed headlong into the mud, looked utterly wretched. Never before had he endured such treatment. He immediately roared, "Demon Tiger, if you release me now, when the time comes to raise these mountains, I might spare your life. Otherwise, I shall slaughter you and craft a pelt rug from your hide." Upon hearing this, a fierce glint erupted in Qingyan's eyes, and it prepared to lunge and tear the man to pieces. Just then I spoke, "Who wishes to raise these mountains?" The man suddenly felt a crushing weight of pressure descend upon him. The sheer force of this pressure drove him deep into the mud. Suddenly, he recalled the warnings his elders had impressed upon him. Warnings concerning the red serpent known as the mountain god. At that moment, I emerged from the ancient tree, revealing my true form. I looked down at him and posed a question. I ask, and you shall answer, by what right do you intend to raise these mountains? Under such overwhelming pressure, the man struggled to breathe, unable to harbor even a shred of defiance in his heart. He slowly parted his lips and spoke. The tribal elders had dispatched elite scouts to investigate the mountain range, using the spirit energy harvested within to determine if these ancient peaks were truly awakening. Should it be confirmed, they would flatten the mountains. Employing nuclear weaponry required an immense cost, thus, they had to conduct exhaustive reconnaissance. The exploration phase was now complete, and soon an army with overwhelming firepower would arrive to trample the Taihang range, eradicating every awakened life form residing here. As his voice faded, Qingyan felt his muscles involuntarily contract. Though these awakened beings possessed great strength, their current level of existence remained unable to confront the destructive might of modern civilization head-on. Humanity has ruled this world for ages, and the power of their civilization eclipses all other life. At the very least, as the new era dawns, they remain unwilling to relinquish their grip on power, choosing instead to use violence as their primary defense. Their logic is simple. If an existence such as mine is erased, the spiritual energy of the great mountains will naturally fall into their hands. This mindset is crude and violent, yet undeniably effective. Famous mountains and great rivers are awakening. Before long, this world will be fully reborn. The old era draws to a close and the new era is upon it. Just then, the man began to convulse uncontrollably. His spirit had been utterly shattered. Unable to speak another word, I slowly retreated back into the ancient tree. A sorrowful, archaic sigh echoed from above. Faintly, the sound of metallic scales scraping against bark could be heard. After all this time, humanity still has not learned to fear nature. Meanwhile, at the temples of Mount Wutai, the monks gathered in the courtyard, preparing to abandon the monastery and descend the mountain. However, the abbot chanted a single Buddhist mantra and refused to depart. He gazed toward the great mountains, watching as the rain slowly subsided, his expression deepening into profound sorrow. For the abbot knew that this was not a matter of compromise. The silence at this moment was merely a harbinger of the storm about to descend. This place would soon be transformed into a sea of blood and suffering. He halted his aged frame and once again reopened the connection between the outside world and the Taihang Mountains. It was a tacit consent, granting any life within this realm the chance to make a choice when the impending catastrophe arrived. The abbot sighed softly with deep emotion. Why suffer so needlessly? That being holds their posture far too high. If they refuse to bow their head, they shall only be crushed beneath the wheels of modern civilization. Thinking of this, a trace of sorrow inexplicably welled up in the abbot's heart. He was a man who had witnessed the great deluge 100 years prior. He had once been fortunate enough to have a single encounter with that crimson serpent. Thus he wished to stand atop the Taihang mountain range to bid that being farewell as dawn broke. A piercing siren echoed throughout the region surrounding the Taihang Mountains, as countless helicopters streaked across the sky above. The thunderous roar of the rotor blades shattered the profound stillness deep within the great mountains. High-speed cameras concealed beneath the aircraft fuselages transmitted live imagery to the distant imperial capital. The feed reached a tightly sealed conference room where those seated inside were at least a century old. At this moment, a gravelly voice commanded, "Drop the munitions and force those beasts out." Deep within the Taihang Mountains, following the order, flames erupted as a massive quantity of incendiary bombs were dropped onto the designated coordinates. The violent tremors seemed as though they would shatter the mountain range itself. Flocks of birds fled the forests in terror, simultaneously awakening something far deeper within the abyss. Not far away, a towering pallid colossus stood firm upon the mountain peak. Its body was encased in crystalline ice formed by the misty rain. A frigid wind blew from that direction, instantly transforming the area into an icy purgatory. Perched upon the ancient camphor tree deep within Taihang, I suddenly opened my eyes. Within them, molten fire seemed to flow, reflecting the inferno like a mirror. Following this, I tilted my head and let out a soundless roar. An unprecedented aura surged forth from my body. The sky suddenly turned somber as black clouds converged from all directions. A powerful bolt of lightning tore through the earth. Then a torrential downpour began to cascade down. The heat waves that had just emerged were instantly swallowed and extinguished by the gray-white veil. The heavy rain obscured heaven and earth, while an invisible pressure weighed upon the hearts of everyone who had entered the mountains. A cold glint swept across the ground. The helicopter squadron had nowhere to hide as the machine gun fire mingled with the freezing rain. Amidst the somber atmosphere of the conference, a withered voice suddenly echoed. It appears that the Taihang Mountains are not so easily conquered. We have clearly identified the terrain. As long as the ground-based satellites maintain their lock, a continuous barrage of firepower will suffice. The newly awakened life forms of this era cannot endure for long. The time remaining for them is fleeting. Then another voice rang out. Our He-Fighter is already prepared. You old relics have been hiding your resources for so long. Is it not time to finally bring them forth as a show of good faith? As the words faded, the meeting room fell into a brief heavy silence before the murmurs began to rise. To combat that singular existence, these elders had no choice but to bring out the ancestral treasures they had kept hidden at the bottom of their vaults. Meanwhile, within the Taihang mountain range, I was facing humanity's ground forces with nothing but my physical form. They were the detachment responsible for guarding the ground-based satellites, equipped with heavy artillery and 3 attack helicopters, and concealed within the massive equipment behind them lay a guided missile. Under my relentless assault, the personnel of these ground forces scrambled to evacuate, and the helicopters fled the scene. Once they had retreated, the concealed guided missile was detonated, and my body was instantly consumed by a sea of fire. Yet very quickly the torrential rain extinguished the raging inferno, and from the ruins a blade of fire soared into the sky, striking the satellite deployment mechanism with lethal precision. I stared coldly in the direction of the departing helicopters, golden candle-like flames within my eyes flickering amidst the downpour. At this moment, trickles of blood sprayed from the fissures in my flesh. I had been injured after all, and beyond the scales that had been blasted away, I had also suffered several broken ribs. That missile had struck me head-on. If I had not positioned my ancient sword before me in time, the wounds I sustained would surely have been far more grievous. Without delay, I began to draw in the spiritual energy lingering in the air. This energy could effectively assist in mending my wounds. It was not a vast amount, yet it was exceptionally precious. Just then I sensed an eye in the high heavens watching me. The memories inherited from Wenren allowed me to react instantly. This was a man-made satellite orbiting in the cosmos. These objects circling the planet were both eyes and weapons, and thus I had to destroy every trace of my presence here. I could not be certain if this heavy rainfall would fully obscure our forms. Throughout the path I had traveled, blood-soaked battles were raging across the mountains. A great bird engulfed in flames dove toward the gathered men, its wings flapping to shatter aircraft with a single strike. Regrettably, the roaring flames were breached by the torrential rain, followed by an arrow that pierced through the assailant's throat. A white deer clad in ice armor carved a path of frost through the torrent of steel, only to be bound by 9 shaggy copper rings, and subsequently decapitated. I closed my eyes and the golden candlelight flickered out in an instant. Before snapping open once more, the light within them even more dazzling and radiant than before. At this moment, the spirit energy coursing through my body surged toward my meridians like a frenzied dragon, flooding into my limbs and bones. My injured scales and flesh were healing at a rapid pace. Shattered bones were forcibly knit back together, and the fierce aura of the ancient sword blanketed the earth. Is that all there is? If this is all it takes to level Taihang, then you are still far from reaching your goal. As the words left my lips, my massive serpentine body coiled and vanished from the spot. I swept my tail, whipped up a gale, and dozens of blood-red blades danced in the air, trailing closely behind me. A man stood in the downpour, aiming a cannon as he unleashed a single projectile. He assumed I would be pierced through, but in truth, the moment he looked up and locked gazes with my golden pupils, the ancient sword descended in a flash, carving him into countless fragments. As the thunder roared and lightning struck the earth, I caught a glimpse of it and swept it away. On the other side of the battlefield stood a woman in exquisite attire. With every graceful wave of her hand, she invoked mystical transformations, rendering the ferocious azure lighting-shrouded tiger unable to utilize its savage strength. Qian was roaring. If it could only draw near to this woman, it would crush her into a pulp with a single strike. I had already arrived silently at this sector of the battlefield, turning my attention to the mysterious array flag set up in the surroundings. Just then, the woman spoke to Qingyan. "It was you who killed my useless younger brother, was it not? Although I hold no affection for him, he was after all of my own blood, so you shall die here and be buried alongside him." Upon finishing her words, the woman began to weave a spell with her fingers. This was a method used to channel ancient energy, followed by the chanting of an archaic incantation. An immense pressure of spiritual energy descended upon the area enclosed by the array flags, converging into an inferno that spanned the horizon, a sea of vast, surging flames, as if intending to roast Qingyan alive. The fierce tiger bellowed, its crimson fur gradually turning pale. Is Qingyan preparing to risk her life? Suddenly, the woman's elegant brows furrowed. She realized that the formation banners were missing a corner and were continuously diminishing. Within a few breaths, the hexagonal formation banners were being uprooted one by one. She had been channeling the ancient banners, and this forced cessation caused a backlash, and blood slowly began to spill from the corner of her mouth. The formation banners should have been protected, and forcibly extracting the banners while channeling them is far more difficult than forcibly breaking the formation, so it is certain that something has arrived. Thinking of this, the woman felt a sense of tension, immediately recalling the teachings of the clan elders. Deep within the great mountains reside extraordinary beings, for whom slaughtering cultivators of their level is as easy as taking items from a bag. Thinking of this, she ceased her spellcasting and retreated into the center of the crowd. Following that, the flames vanished, and the sensation of high-temperature scorching was instantly replaced by the coolness of torrential rain. Seeing the great serpent reappear before her eyes amidst the rain, Qingyan had never felt that being drenched was such a relief. At this moment, I walked toward it, carrying the 6 ancient formation banners. That woman is very cautious. Is she hiding and fleeing within the crowd? My current state is not very good, so it is better not to pursue her for the time being. Only now did Qingyan notice the small bloodstains on my body. Because I am a deep red scarlet serpent by nature, the bloodstains were barely visible. Just then I suddenly noticed the people in the distance retreating like a receding tide. Amidst the great battle, hearing nothing but the sound of falling rain, I instinctively flung Qingyan, who was beside me, out of the way. The next second, a massive crescent moon instantly descended from the sky, and before Qingyan could even react, she saw a sunrise amidst the mountain range. The extreme brilliance of the crescent moon instantly enveloped the entire land, melting mountains and flattening forests, while completely concealing my massive red body. Qingyan let out a desperate cry, and in the next second both of her eyes were cruelly burned blind with bright red blood flowing from her eye sockets. With every passing second, the Taihang Mountains were suffering immense losses. Aside from the astronomical secular cost, there was also the loss of treasured ancient artifacts and promising descendants. Yet the clan elders in Even the old man named Zhao Sheng was playing the gentle melodies of 20th century Shanghai inside the conference room. Amidst the classic singing of the chanteuse, the clan elders felt as if they had returned to their youth. Zhao Sheng stood up, spread his arms wide, and laughed loudly. The goddess Shihei has brought us a new light. Mount Taihang is currently like a beauty stripped of her garments, waiting for us to enjoy her. You must know that the next 500 years belong to us, and the 5 million years following that will still belong to us. Inside the temple at Mount Wutai, an elderly monk looked toward the sun rising in the south. He silently chanted the name of Buddha. He could sense the spirit of that being vanishing beneath the sun. After a long while, the rain finally ceased. The sunlight illuminated the desolate, ruined landscape across Mount Taihang. Only then did everyone realize that twilight was drawing near. A young man cast his gaze into the distance, then slowly shook his head. Those old men are far too eager to finish their shift. She is a deity in mythology. She is the sun goddess representing 6 red dragons pulling a golden chariot. Legend says that every day, Shihei steadily drove her dragon chariot, holding the rhythm of time, commanding the sun's progression and rising and setting alongside it. The young man stepped onto this land that symbolized despair. Above his head hovered a massive bronze cauldron, from which faint pale green light drifted downward. Under the protection of the great cauldron, he arrived at the center of where Zhihe had descended, and there he saw the fierce beast with half of its body destroyed. Before fixing his gaze upon the colossal pulsing red object within the great crater. What truly terrifying vitality. The young man could not help but exclaim in admiration. As he approached the colossal object, there was no stench of gore or blood. Instead, a strange, peculiar fragrance rose to greet his nostrils. He furrowed his brows. He was clearly walking through a living hell, yet the surroundings felt as if they were a peach blossom forest in full spring. Within the great crater, I writhed incessantly. At this moment, my scales had been blasted away, and my life essence had been all but severed, yet those golden pupils remained brilliant. My will had not yet completely perished. At this moment, the young man raised his right hand, and deep, resonant syllables poured from his lips. Bathed in the descending starlight, he resembled a god king, and my instincts sensed an immense, encroaching killing intent. At this moment, the nerves throughout my entire body were completely shattered. The young man perceived my thrashing as a struggle, yet in reality it was merely an involuntary muscular reflex caused by the magma beneath the earth searing my flesh. In truth, I had no desire to move at all. I had already exerted my final strength. If I could not hold on, then so be it. Yet, in the depths of my heart, I vaguely sensed that it should not end this way. The awakening of the mountain range implied that everything had already been prepared. What is termed as sudden is merely a perspective held by lives of short duration. The transformations of the mountains must surely be measured in units of 10,000 years. I truly and deeply felt the aura of Taihang as vast and ancient as a deity, a mystery dating back billions of years. This transformation could not possibly be unexpected once the civilization accumulated over 8,000 years had taken its toll. Once awakened, it was as unstoppable as the crushing wheels of history, and there ought to exist a power capable of burying everything from the old era. At this moment, the scriptures inscribed upon the great cauldron seemed to come to life, the characters manifesting into birds, earths, and beasts, racing and circling around the massive vessel. A sliver of primordial divine fire from that ancient era was drawn out by the young man, causing ripples to distort the space around us. He remained cautiously on guard, unwilling to step even an inch closer to me, intending to directly unleash the divine fire to bring everything to an end. That sacred sliver of divine fire magnified infinitely in my vision, yet between the young man and myself a hazy figure suddenly appeared. Her form was dreamlike and illusory, a mysterious veil draped over her face, reflecting the silhouettes of the mountain range beneath the setting sun. The figure casually raised her hand, and the divine fire was caught in her palm, instantly condensing into the size of a seed. The young man, terrified, attempted to urge the great cauldron forward, only to find it did not budge in the slightest. Even the searing flames had frozen in place, as if in this very moment all things had ceased to exist. He sought to retreat, only to realize that he too was unable to move. I struggled to lift my one remaining eye. The features of the hazy figure remained indiscernible, yet I inexplicably felt that she was smiling, a smile both gentle and faint. Not far away on the open ground, the humans had finished categorizing the mediums of the Taihang Mountains, and an old man with 1 foot already in the grave observed. He was supported by the medical staff as they made their way to the scene. The old man cast a glance at the fengming grass, which was currently burning with violet flames, and spoke up, "This plant shall belong to the Li family. None of you have any objections, do you?" Another clan elder behind him chimed in, "If Brother Li wishes to take it, then so be it. Why must we stand on such ceremony?" "That is true. Has the boy from the Zhao family not returned yet?" "That is hardly surprising. You know well enough how cautious that lad is. If you ask me, among the younger generation, no one will travel as far as he can, provided he maintains such a temperament. Caution is a virtue. Indeed, caution is a virtue." Elder Bai sighed repeatedly. If my own boy had been even half as cautious, he would not have perished in the jaws of a tiger. His talent was not lacking, but he was simply too arrogant. Just as Elder Bai was about to reply, he suddenly sensed a massive wave of heat. The air currents carried an intense, scorching temperature, heating his very skin to a burning sensation. The old man struggled, narrowing his eyes into thin slits, and looked toward the herb at the center of the intense heat. only to see the deep violet flames on the leaves igniting silently, spreading rapidly to the surroundings. Furthermore, it was not just this single herb. Every herb discovered at the scene was now undergoing a startling transformation. They heard someone softly chanting mysterious verses, the tone as gentle as the recitation of poetry, the source of the sound seemingly coming from the distant horizon, yet simultaneously appearing to echo right beside everyone's ears. At that moment, starlight from across the mountain range gathered, reflecting in the eyes of the young man, whose figure spread his slender arms, as if intending to embrace the world. Moreover, the seed formed from the divine fire continued to melt within the figure's hand, finally condensing into a drop of transparent liquid. The figure then bowed, lifting the drop of liquid in his palm and letting it fall onto the crown of my head, much like the angels of ancient legends, performing an anointing ritual for an emperor of the mortal realm. Following this, the figure touched the ancient mask covering my face, and then vanished on the spot. At that instant, the final ray of twilight faded deep into the mountain range. As the light vanished completely anew, the young man retreated step by step, for he realized that the serpent was in the midst of a metamorphosis. The injuries were of no consequence to me, for with every breath, new scales emerged, and the bones throughout my entire body creaked and groaned. Simultaneously, my skull began to shift and reshape, with the keratinous tissue near my neck proliferating wildly, branching outward, much like spring swallowing the buds of newly sprouted shoots, until massive crimson wood-like antlers had fully formed and ceased their growth. A raging golden flame burned intensely within my eye sockets. At this moment, as the crimson serpent transformed into a Jiao dragon, the young man watched my evolution intently, etching every detail clearly into the depths of his soul. To witness such an ancient and magnificent evolution with his own eyes, even if he were to die, he would have no regrets. At this moment, I suddenly raised my massive skull, and then with a sudden spring of my body, I ascended into the horizon, my colossal blood-colored form coiling and vanishing into the clouds. The young man suddenly jolted to his senses. The creature's evolution had concluded, yet it had not birthed dragon claws. But compared to a common serpent, he preferred to address me as a five-clawed Jiao. As the clouds parted, the resplendent Milky Way was revealed in the heavens above. A massive, ferocious head descended, gazing down at him. He could even see his own reflection within those golden pupils. Crimson scales danced through the air like a forest of maple leaves. The young man absent-mindedly reached out to catch one, but upon looking down he found his palm empty. As he attempted to look up, he suddenly felt a hand rest upon the crown of his head. A casual press, yet it rendered him unable to stand upright, forcing him into a kneeling posture before this nameless ancient existence. Then, catching a glimpse from the corner of his eye, he saw a figure ethereal as an immortal, followed by a cold, clear voice that resonated toward him. Before the dawn breaks, should anyone remain lost and unawakened upon Taihang Mountain, then they shall remain here for eternity. Following this, I approached the violent tiger. Gazing at the Qing Yan who had lost half of its body, I realized just how large this little cat truly was. It was a pity that half of the tiger's cheek had been torn away. I slit my wrist, letting fresh blood splatter upon its form. The spiritual essence expanded, erupting into a thick white mist. I then sat cross-legged, appraising this human form I had not inhabited for hundreds of years, while simultaneously waiting for Qing Yan to awaken. Qing Yan had not perished, it had merely fallen into a deep slumber. Now that a terrifyingly potent spirit blood was bathing its body, its consciousness was slowly beginning to recover. A moment later, an eye shimmering with blue light snapped open, immediately fixing his gaze upon the unfamiliar figure before it. Without hesitation, the azure lightning surged forth in an instant. Having witnessed the protagonist fall and seeing Taihang about to fall into human hands, it perceived all that it saw as an enemy. But as its gaze fell upon the branching horns on my forehead, the hostility in the youth's eyes shifted into pure astonishment. Hesitantly, it called out to me, testing the waters. I nodded gently and spoke, "Have no fear, this will all be over soon." Gongfeng then lifted me into the air, and I sat cross-legged, suspended at the same height as the mountain peaks. In the end, humanity could not carry anything away from these great mountains. After paying a heavy price, they could only depart in dejection. Even though every heart was brimming with resentment, when they looked up and beheld the terrifying life form sitting cross-legged amidst the mountain ranges, no matter how deep their dissatisfaction, they could only grit their teeth and swallow their pride. As the first light of winter emerged, I slowly closed my eyes. I would certainly make the one pulling the strings pay the price, but for now I had more important matters to attend to. The mountain range had pulled me back from the brink of death and bestowed upon me the miracle of evolution. That translucent droplet was the essence gathered from every spirit vessel of Taihang. In other words, the very catalyst for my transformation was this mountain itself. Now that my evolution was complete, I had to return this spirit essence to the range. I withdrew the bronze cauldron taken from the young man and sealed the magnificent spirit veins within it. As the ancient incantations were chanted once more, the pictographs carved onto the surface of the cauldron seemed to pulse with life. Immediately, an unimaginable torrent of spiritual energy descended from the heavens. These pictographs transformed into avian creatures of pure spirit, dispersing into every corner of Taihang. This process would take a long time. After an eternity had passed, once the scripture of spirit incarnation had traversed the entirety of the Taihang Mountains, I cast my gaze toward the desolate earth in the distance. Then a torrential rain began to pour at the foot of Mount Taihang. Soon a green sprout pushed through the scorched, blackened soil. The entire mountain range erupted with new, vibrant life. Although it was midsummer, the scene evoked the spirit of the Jingzhe, the awakening of insects in early spring. At that moment, at the gates of Wutai Mountain, a small deer marked with ancient seal script arrived. This was the final destination of its journey. A look of confusion flickered within its obsidian eyes. Because there were no intermediaries here, only an old monk who had long since passed into nirvana. As the rain ceased, the silhouette of the mountains took on a profound, poetic air. Yet it could not compare to the flora and fauna that resided upon my head. I leaned against the trunk to study the scriptures, while the antler-like branches upon my brow and the birds perched on my shoulders chirped incessantly. Gazing upward, one could behold the majestic shadows of mountains stretching across the clouds for 10,000 miles. Towering high into the firmament, even though they had yet to fully materialize, that aura, ancient and primordial, had already descended from all directions. Throughout these days, I have watched with my own eyes as these mountain shadows become increasingly clear. It will not be long before they truly manifest in this world. This is the true face of the Taihang Divine Mountain, long hidden within the shadows of the ages. Solemn and magnificent beyond description. A flash of azure shadow flickered as a massive pale claw appeared beneath the ancient camphor tree. Qingyan emerged, holding a scroll of documents in its mouth. These were tributes from families with ancient lineages, perhaps hoping that by doing so they could prevent me from eventually descending to purge them. Every so often, Qingyan would retrieve them and place them beneath the old camphor tree on the island in the center of the lake. This is the origin of the scriptures currently in my possession. They were initially trembling with fear, but seeing that I did not refuse, they eventually felt reassured and became even more diligent in their offerings. The aristocratic clans that had not set foot in Taihang back then, upon hearing this, also presented rare ancient texts in hopes of securing some favor. Qingyan asked, "Will I simply let them be?" Its fur is now stark white, marked with ink-black stripes. When it runs, it is truly awe-inspiring, though the scar over its left eye remains. It could have erased the scar during its molting, but it chose not to. It claims the scar is a part of its king's crown, and furthermore, it will never forget that day. I never said I would let them be. I slowly turned a page and remarked that this was merely a misunderstanding born of their own conceit. Qingyan replied, "I accepted their tribute. As a beast of prey, it is forthright and believes that accepting benefits is equivalent to agreeing to a trade. Did ancient vassal states not present tribute to the imperial court in exactly this manner, so that the court would send troops to aid them in times of peril?" I cast a glance of disdain its way and leapt down from the tree. Closing the scripture, I gestured toward Qingyan and spoke. "You stubborn cat, you have many virtues, but ever since I assumed human form and began walking these great mountains in the guise of a youth, Thon Yen paid it no mind. This king of beasts naturally perceived me as a being who had weathered the longest passage of time within these mountains, so it felt no offense in being addressed as a junior. Thon Yen did not grasp my underlying meaning, yet simply gazing upon me felt as though I had undergone a profound transformation. The colossal red serpent, which once radiated the cold authority of a monarch whenever we met, was now serene, stripped of that suffocating sense of oppression, no longer bearing the severe kingly aura that kept even kin and friends at a distance. In the depths of its heart, Thon Yen actually felt that my current youthful appearance was far more approachable. I tossed the scriptures that the clans had so carefully guarded aside with a casual flick of my wrist, and then stated, "I shall do nothing to them. But as for the wandering spirits and ghosts that remain in this world, I shall personally see them off to the cycle of reincarnation." By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Thon Yen ceased its hesitation, its four hooves gathering force as it transformed into a streak of azure light and departed. Along the way, it pondered perhaps it should seek out a few mountain spirits to ask what those words truly signified. The ancient text that these great clans had carefully preserved helped me rediscover the world, and although the general scope remained similar to my memories from before I gained sentience, there were still subtle differences. The emperors recorded in the history of the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties did not align with their titles. The campaign of King Wu against Zhou had become but a different narrative for the transition of dynasties. The legends of the investiture of the gods were only alluded to in the hidden esoteric archives of ancient books. The concept of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors was not prevalent, thus the people of this era identified themselves as descendants of the Great Yan. Their regnal titles derived from the Great Yan Empire that unified the various states following the Xia, Shang, and Zhou. The ancient artifacts held by the rising beings of humanity originated for the most part from these 3 ancient dynasties, Xia, Shang, and Zhou. In those days, the great masters utilized these bronze artifacts to seal the essence of heaven and earth, ensuring that their supernatural arts could endure. Even after 1,000 years, that sealed spiritual energy had yet to vanish entirely, utilized by rising beings as the trump cards of their noble clans. I reached out, picked up a fruit, and fed it to the bird perched upon my antlers. My aura did not resemble that of a great demon. Rather, it felt as if I were an extension of the mountains and forests themselves. Lately, birds often gathered to rest upon my antlers, finding it convenient to preen my hair for me. I retrieved the bronze tripod. All the totems that had manifested into spirits and departed had returned to the vessel, save for a single corner that remained incomplete. A small deer engraved in seal script had yet to return, and the trace of spiritual essence it carried had not found its way home. Thonyen expressed a desire to investigate, and I gave it my leave. Then I stood up, leapt into the air, and vanished into the clouds in the blink of an eye. Upon arriving before an ancient temple, I spotted an old man sweeping away fallen leaves. So I stepped forward and asked, "Elder, do you still have incense for sale here?" The old monk replied that he did, but he required no money. He only asked that this young man help his aged bones sweep the fallen leaves. Once I had finished sweeping the courtyard, the old man kept his word and handed me 3 sticks of incense. As I was about to depart, the old monk bowed respectfully and said, "Amitabha, with the Taihang sacred mountain watching over us, it has been this humble monk's honor to have the mountain god himself sweep the leaves for me. It is a privilege. I hope your excellency bears no offense." I looked back, speaking in a calm tone. "Very well. Old man, you are not a scholar by nature. Does it not feel strange to force such flowery language upon yourself?" When he handed me the broom, he spoke clearly and decisively without a hint of trepidation, and with that, I took the 3 sticks of incense and crossed the temple threshold. The old man's hearty laughter echoed from behind me, followed by his voice. "I never expected you to be so insightful." I replied, "Do you want to know how? Just strive to live a few more years. Sooner or later, you too will reach a state of insight." Afterward, the old monk returned to sit upon his chair beneath the ancient pine. He never imagined that the existence within Taihang Mountain, the very name that caused those powerful elders to tremble in fear at the mere mention, would resemble such a polite and interesting young man, as he had originally expected a stern, intimidating senior with a presence that commanded automatic respect. After entering, a monk who appeared to be of great seniority and high standing came to receive me. He explained that the small deer with the seal script markings had stationed itself in the temple's backyard, guarding the room where the temple's late abbot had passed into nirvana. The others were at a loss and had no choice but to wait for the master of this small deer to arrive. It is a pity that our cultivation was insufficient at the time of the abbot's nirvana. We found it difficult to communicate with a spirit such as yours. I asked, "When did the abbot pass away?" The monk replied that it was 7 months ago, at the hour when twilight meets the night, and that the abbot possessed the deepest cultivation among us all. Based on his cultivation level, a century of life should have been effortless. So how could the abbot have attained nirvana when he was not even 100 years old? Why did he pass away? Walking to the backyard, I saw the legendary small deer lying prostrate at the door of a room. Upon seeing me, its dark, glistening eyes sparkled with light. Seeing this, I manifested the green bronze tripod, and the small deer returned to the body of the tripod without the slightest resistance, transforming into deer-shaped characters running within it. Upon witnessing this ancient aura from Feng Qingtong, a flash of astonishment involuntarily appeared in the monk's eyes, but he quickly regained his composure, murmuring a Buddhist chant in a low voice, casting aside the distractions in his heart before pushing open the wooden door. A gentle fragrance rushed to greet him. Beyond a set of table and chairs, a cabinet, and a bed, the yellow wooden room contained nothing else. The monk was startled. The abbot was nowhere to be found in the room. Logically, if an ordinary person had been dead for a week, especially during a sweltering heat of summer, there would be a pungent stench or at least some foul odor, yet now even the body itself had vanished. With his mind filled with questions, the monk spoke, "Benefactor, do all souls ascend in this manner?" I replied, "Not necessarily." I then walked to the head of the bed and picked up a bead, pitch black and lustrous throughout. Unable to suppress the awe in his heart, the monk exclaimed, "Could this be a sarira?" I said nothing, simply placing the sarira into the monk's palm. Beside the sarira lay a book. I picked it up and flipped through it. It was not an ancient manual, but a volume of legends concerning supernatural occurrences, with only one entry containing handwritten notes, a short passage written by the abbot that read as follows. South of the mountain stands a temple. Its age is like molten fire. Its frail body accompanies the wind and rain, fading as it illuminates all living things. Through darkness and brilliance, the southern bamboo awaits. Stepping out of the courtyard, I looked up at the ginkgo tree with its dragon-coiling trunk, caught a single golden ginkgo leaf, and spoke, "Young lady, how much longer do you intend to swing up there?" My words startled the monk, who hurriedly looked up, only to find nothing but ginkgo leaves falling like snow. He saw nothing else. At that moment, the girl swinging within the canopy of the ginkgo tree suddenly ceased her movements, the look of excitement frozen upon her small face, as she looked down beneath the tree in disbelief, realizing that my eyes, clear as mountain springs, were indeed fixed upon her, realizing that my gaze had not shifted in the slightest, remaining firmly locked onto her. She stuck out her tongue, her hands brushing aside an invisible berry. Thanks to a concentration far surpassing that of ordinary men, the monks watched on in stunned silence. They could never have imagined that within the ginkgo tree, having endured countless days and nights, a sentient being was awakening. I asked the girl swaying on the branches how I could see her. The monk standing beside me asked in confusion, "Who is this young lady?" I replied that she is no mere maiden but the ginkgo tree itself. A creature must be a ferocious predator, slaughtering to seize the mediums of heaven and earth to step onto the path of awakening. This principle does not apply to flora, for they cannot move and find it incredibly difficult to actively seize their own destiny. Therefore, while beasts and birds rising to power in these great mountains are not uncommon, the awakening of plants and trees is exceptionally rare. Their path to transcendence is far more arduous than that of the animals. I gazed at the girl as one would behold a rare and precious treasure. She, however, was provoked by my gaze. Despite being a ginkgo tree, she possessed the fierce aura of an arched-back kitten. She then retorted indignantly, "If you won't answer me, then so be it, but what is with that look in your eyes? Are you looking down on me? Or do you think I don't know how to fight? Do you dare to exchange blows with me?" I smiled, ignoring her outburst, and asked if she had a name. The girl instinctively lifted her head and replied, "I stand by my name and do not hide my lineage." Sushan spoke, only then realizing I was merely toying with her. She hastily rolled up her sleeves and said, "Hey, are you going to answer me, or are you going to step up and fight?" I mulled over the name Sushian, disregarding the girl's provocations. I then turned to the monk beside me and asked, "Is your abbot perhaps named Sujing?" The monk shook his head and replied, "Forgive me, but our abbot has been a high-respected, virtuous monk here for over 10 years. How could we possibly know his secular name?" Note: the original text had a slight numbering skip in the source, aligning with the provided prompt structure. The girl, having been ignored several times, could no longer contain herself. She leaped down from the branch, approached with a menacing aura, and stared at me intensely. Yet my smile remained composed and gentle. The monk could not help but retreat several paces. As for that little ancestor, the monk's palms were uncontrollably slick with sweat. He prayed that if these two awakened beings truly intended to fight, they would take it outside the temple grounds. If the temple were unfortunately caught in the crossfire, everyone would be forced to sleep outdoors and meditate under the stars tonight. But after meeting my cold, piercing gaze, the girl suddenly settled down, much like a cat whose fur had been smoothed. Seeing this, I asked her, "Were you raised by an old monk?" Sushian nodded, taking the opportunity to steal a glance at my expression. She was calculating in her heart. If this man were to open his mouth to reveal a bloodthirsty intent, her serpent-like nature exposed, she curled up and fled immediately. Immediately after, seeing me extend my palm with fingers splayed, she asked with a guilty conscience what I intended to do. I asked, since the late monk had entrusted her with an item for me, how long did she intend to keep it hidden before finally handing it over? The girl scoffed, saying, "That old man told you everything? That cannot be right. How could you possibly know?" I looked at her with a calm expression, staring until the hair on the back of her neck stood on end. Under the scrutiny of these eerie supernatural pupils, she dared not play any more tricks and could only nimbly climb the tree. A moment later, she returned from her circuit, holding a book in her hands, which she handed to me, saying, "This is a cultivation manual. The old man insisted that I keep it, saying I must gift it to the very first pilgrim who visited the temple." I opened the book and scanned through a few pages. It was an ancient cultivation manual written in seal script, originating from the same source as the pictographs on the bronze cauldron. Unlike the ancient texts gifted by noble families, which are mostly records of hidden eras or mere speculations, this was a genuine cultivation technique. After a brief overview, I asked her why she had not used this method to cultivate herself. The girl rolled her eyes and retorted, "If I could learn it, I certainly would have, but since I cannot, I have no choice in the matter. This book is only a fragment, the latter half at that. I have no way to even begin the introductory stages." I told her that this was a significant gift, and with a shift of my intent, the bronze cauldron manifested, extracting all the Buddhist scriptures contained within it. The girl picked one up at random and was stunned by the profundity of its contents. These were true Buddhist teachings and secret texts hidden away here. Simultaneously, the small deer pictograph on the bronze cauldron emerged, carrying a glimmer of golden Buddhist light. The little deer raised its head, its spiritual energy condensing into drops of dew that fell into the girl's palm. I told her that if she could glean some insight from this, I would take her away from this temple and grant her the power to walk freely through the mortal world. Sushian discarded her flippant attitude, her tone filled with shock and doubt as she asked, "Is that true?" I replied that compared to the gifts of today, it was not even worth mentioning. Naturally, the prerequisite is that she must gain some enlightenment. This book ultimately belongs to the monk. It is not fitting for you to remain a nun forever. The girl retracted the spiritual energy, her expression complex as she said, "Very well, I will study diligently and follow you out into the world." As she finished speaking, I raised my hand, and the small deer pictograph returned to the great cauldron. I walked through every Buddhist hall in the temple, before finally returning to the foot of the ginkgo tree. I halted my steps, realizing at this moment that my aura had reached its absolute zenith. It was only because I carried the Taihang intermediary, causing my aura to merge and resonate with the mountain range itself, that the tribulation clouds had yet to descend. Ever since I was granted the intermediary that day and unlocked the ancient evolution, I had existed within a truly wondrous state. I had not yet stepped into a new realm. The spiritual energy surrounding my body was nearly overflowing, yet in reality, I did not truly reside in that higher realm. My level of existence remained no different from that of Qingyan. So Ocean, now walking the mortal world, my temple aura has climbed to its peak. I must undergo the tribulation, and the location shall not be within Taihang. If I were to trigger the tribulation clouds while still in Taihang, the mountain would shelter me, whether intentionally or not. I would then be unable to absorb the divine essence from the intermediary, nor truly be reborn through the tempering of the heavens. In this era of restoration, I am the apex predator, and I remain so today. If I were to cower in Taihang out of fear of the lightning tribulation, I would consider myself far too obsessed with preserving a life of cowardice. An apex predator is not a Jiao dragon, and the stone gate is the wilderness. At this moment, a rare, violent storm poured down upon the stone gate, as a group of young people chased after the unusual lightning that had suddenly converged between heaven and earth. This sudden lightning storm was pursued and provoked by these young people, who regarded it as one of the opportunities for rebirth, and thus drove along the suburban road in pursuit, thinking in their hearts that perhaps obtaining a single drop of this rain could change their lives significantly. The driver glanced at the passenger seat, missing the familiar, imposing figure, and asked the young man beside him where Brother Zhao had gone. It had been many days since anyone had seen him. Previously, it was always the young man named Zhao Hangzhou sitting in the passenger seat, speaking with profound insight and extensive knowledge, becoming one of the core figures as soon as he entered their circle. Yet, he had vanished recently and no one knew where he had gone. A woman in the back seat rose, resting her chin on the seat back, and said, "Brother Zhao has been hospitalized. I heard he accidentally fell down a flight of stairs, resulting in a minor fracture." The driver imagined the suave Zhao Hongzhou lying in a hospital bed in a cast, unable to go anywhere, and could not help but chuckle. After driving a little longer, they saw that the road ahead was blocked. Robust men equipped with refined gear stood at the intersection. In the distance, a lightning storm descended upon the land. The pillars of lightning stretched out like a spiderweb, spanning the horizon, connecting heaven and earth, resembling one of the buff dude's gestures for the car to stop and signals them to roll down the window. The group of kids inside are shaking, wondering if they just ran into some terrorists. Like, have they ever even seen this kind of smoke before? Seeing the car isn't moving, the unit starts banging on the glass, flashing some papers and saying, "Yo, there's a massive storm ahead. The road is straight up closed." But right then, a zigzag of lightning tears through the clouds, and this violent flash is so blinding it wipes out every other color, leaving the world in nothing but black and white. The kids inside the car hold their breath because they're positive they just saw a massive serpent-like shadow twisting in the storm. Meanwhile, our boy is literally bathing in lightning, as iron scales are rattling and electric blood is dripping from his fangs. Tribulation energy is peaking and blood starts seeping through his scales, only to be instantly washed away by the downpour. It's like a whole different dimension inside those clouds, nothing like your average thunderstorm. Aside from pure carnage, every bolt of this tribulation lightning feels like it's actually alive, packing an insane amount of both death energy and life force. Our boy is going through a terrifying evolution right now, his massive red body coiling up, and as his giant head hangs low, a golden humanoid slowly emerges above his monstrous Jiao form. Covered in divine light, I'm staring at this solidifying golden body. This must be the primordial spirit mentioned in the ancient scrolls. Legend says when some cultivators reach the peak, they hit the spirit projection stage, fusing their essence, energy, and spirit to create a mini-me. This little guy chills in the sea of consciousness, and since he can dip into the void, these cultivators are basically impossible to put down for good. Back in the day, they called this being immortal, a literal cheat code for a second chance at life when things go south. But honestly, I feel like this isn't my path. That golden spirit stuff is for the old heads. It's not for me, and with that, I exhale a breath of turbid air. The tribulation clouds, which were supposed to end, suddenly start thundering again. I purposefully let that solidifying golden figure shatter into pieces, letting the fragments melt into my red Jiao body, manifesting golden runes that look like the heavens themselves. Now the tribulation clouds are surging again, and the energy is 10 times more terrifying than before. Facing that pure killing intent, my scales snap shut as the golden bamboo ignites, and ancient scriptures echo through the tribulation clouds, channeling the raw power of the mountains. I once stumbled upon a 5-element slaughter technique, and even though I haven't practiced it long, or found the right treasures to channel the elements yet, I'm using my own body as the catalyst to take this heavenly tribulation head-on. As the lightning bolts crash down, even the crimson flood dragon starts to lose its nerve. Our boy looks tiny under those massive clouds, but his movements are still as smooth as ever. Honestly, this isn't his first rodeo, and it definitely won't be his last. Then I fire up the slaughter technique, and golden sigils start glowing, weaving themselves into ancient scriptures. The laws of the 5 elements cycle through him, with gold and fire seals shutting down the lightning storm and jump-starting his life force. The crimson flood dragon looks up, proving to the world that his path is the real deal. Meanwhile, over at the Black Crystal Tower in the heart of the Imperial Capital's business district, some guy is lazily scrolling through the news when he catches a glimpse of that figure literally bathing in lightning on the screen. His eyebrows twitch so slightly you'd almost miss it. His secretary hands him 2 letters, saying they're from the Li and Zhao families. Our boy doesn't even blink, he just rips them open and skims through the contents. These old fossils and their obsession with tradition, he mutters. Always yapping about how things aren't what they used to be. Talking about the good old days while sending letters via messenger, when this could have been a single text message. He just tosses both letters into the trash without a second thought. Suddenly, an old voice chimes in asking what the Zhao and Li families are up to. An old man suddenly appears at the office door. Our guy is actually surprised for once. "Grandpa Changan, what are you doing here?" The old man just chuckles. "It's not just me. All the old geezers from the ancestral land are here. Things are getting spicy and they couldn't just sit around anymore." He nods, getting up to leave while telling his secretary to prep the medical gear and the conference room. As soon as they're out the door, the old man's voice turns serious. The Crimson Flood Dragon is in trouble. They made a huge scene back at Mount Taihang, and now that things are going south for the dragon, they're starting to panic. They've been acting like they're untouchable for too long. Now, for the first time, they're feeling someone's hand around their throats. Their lives aren't in their own hands anymore. Our boy looks up and asks the real question. Okay, but what does that have to do with us and the Gu family? The old man's face darkens. The Zhao and Li families have been our allies for generations. They're begging for our backup. Guyan's voice turns ice cold in an instant. Grandfather, I already risked my life to cut all ties at Mount Taihang. He warned me 1,000 times not to mess with the great Dao ever again. And today you lot still think you can butt in? The old man's voice dropped an octave. Who taught you to catch an attitude with your elders? The only reason we're even letting you run the Gu family's legacy right now is strictly out of respect for your grandfather's sacrifice. Otherwise, between Gu Chuchu's death and the loss of the absolute sword, once we settle those debts, do you really think you'd still be sitting pretty in that chair? Our boy didn't even blink. He just stared the old man down and asked, did you forget something? You didn't choose me to lead the Gu family. I was the only choice you had. You boomers were too busy chasing immortality to care about how the next generation turned out. I've spent my whole life cleaning up the mess left by your lazy-ass descendants. His words were like a jagged blade, straight up gutting the old man's pride. Ice cold, zero warmth. But trust me, they wouldn't dare make a move on us. The foundation of these great families rests entirely on those fossilized clan elders. They're clutching onto massive amounts of manpower and resources, and can even mobilize entire armies if they feel like it. But our boy just locked his fingers together, completely unbothered, and said, line up at Hichao. Letting the Chang'an family go first won't end well for anyone. Meanwhile, over at Shimen, I'm just chilling cross-legged above the firmament. Under the dome of the heavens, I'm literally taking a bath in lightning bolts. My aura is straight up terrifying, with ancient golden runes swirling around me. Scriptures are etched into the air, pulsing as if they're alive. A massive surge of vitality and divine energy is about to drop. I figured, why not? I pull out the green bronze tripod and set it right under the tribulation lightning as lightning serpents roar and wrap around it. The tripod is glowing like crazy, totally unscathed. It's way tankier than I expected. Love to see it. I gave a satisfied nod. Time to test out the original plan. With the 5 elements chi surging, I'm going to use this lightning tribulation to forge my gear. I'm etching my own runes into it to refine it into a true treasure, a top-tier soul weapon. This green bronze tripod and I are basically vibing on the same wavelength, so it's time for a little test drive. I thought I'd have to recall it if things got too heated, but bro is actually built different. Once I finish this tribulation and head down the mountain, first thing I'm doing is hitting. I cracked open the newspaper and the front page was absolutely wild. Divine Dragon shocks Shimen citizens. Right below it was a high-def color photo to match the hype. The world in the shot was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by blinding streaks of lightning. And the main attraction? Our boy, standing there like a literal shadow within the storm. Then I scrolled down to the business section and caught some fine print at the bottom. It said a subsidiary under the Zhao family is currently in talks with the Li Family Corp to cook up a new product collab. I tossed the paper aside and let a silent flame incinerate the whole thing into nothingness. Then I opened my mouth and muttered to myself like a true MC. Why wouldn't they want to bring out the ancient Cultivation records? Right then, a massive clap of thunder jolted this old man awake from his nap. He saw the rain pouring cats and dogs outside, the sound of the storm mixing with a sharp, crisp knocking at the door. The old man remembered that familiar sound at his door. He figured it was just the private doctor who's been following him around. He clutched his chest and finally let out a breath he'd been holding. All the clan elders back at the ancestral land had already dipped to the imperial capital. They were probably busy scheming and plotting ways to secure the family's bag. They were desperately trying to figure out how to deal with the Crimson Flood Dragon problem. Bro, they were even willing to team up with those Zhao family frauds. At this point, there's not a single decent soul left in the ancestral land. Back then, this old man got too close to the medium and got cooked by that eerie purple fire. Ever since he got back from Taihang, his body's been like a deflated balloon. His life force is straight up draining away. He was about to tell his attendant to go open the door, but then he realized something was off. The spot where his guard should have been was empty. The only thing in the room was a bone-chilling draft. The old man realized what was happening and his pupils instantly shrunk. You don't live to be 100 by being a clown. He wasn't about to bet on luck. He knew exactly who it was. The powerhouse from Taihang Mountain had finally arrived. Just as he reached for the panic button, I snatched his withered wrist like it was a dry twig. He just sighed and slumped his hand back down. He knew that if I made it this far, it was time for the final settlement. There was no escaping me. I casually pulled up a chair, sat down and gave him a sup. First time meeting face to face, Li Chanlang. He just sighed, I guess I've finally lost. I grinned and replied, what if I gave you a choice though? His eyes shot open instantly. What kind of choice? I told him option 1, the fossils die so the youth can live. Option 2, the youth die so you fossils can keep breathing. Well, pretty sweet deal, right? Li Chanlong ponders for a moment before dropping his voice. I'll go with option 1. I hit him with a smile and ask why, but the old man goes radio silent, just repeating his choice like a broken record. I stand up, my blue robe sweeping the floor as I dip, leaving him with one final line. I respect your choice, old man. The scene shifts to the heart of the bustling imperial capital. Crowds are everywhere, and the big shots from the Zhao and Li families aren't even trying to keep a low profile. They've opened up the main hall, and the entrance is absolutely swamped with high society elites. On the surface, it's just some business talk between the young blood of the two clans. A strategic partnership, but in reality behind layers of top-tier security. The clan elders are all gathered, and the power level here is even higher than that day at Taihang Mountain. Inside the conference room, the elders are making a whole lot of noise. What's the word from the Gu family? Radio silence, no response. That's Gu family turf. We can't just plant spies wherever we want, so we have zero clues on what those guys are cooking. That doesn't make sense. Someone says, sounding suspicious. Old man Gu bit the dust at Taihang, and now Gu Qiantao is calling the shots. Knowing his personality, he wouldn't show up anyway. It's whatever. The Gu family being Maya doesn't change anything for us. All the rising stars from their branch family are basically fodder now. They're all dead. If we weren't low-key scared of that crimson beast, we would have carved up their assets a long time ago. What a waste. Old man Gu and that absolute sword Gu Shou, either of them would be straight-up kings in today's world. That girl can fully unleash the power of the ancient absolute sword. That alone makes her the undisputed GOAT among the younger generation. Bro, you haven't seen her raining down ancient swords from the sky. It's straight-up nightmare fuel. Word on the street is someone saw that beast in Taihang Mountain controlling dozens of blood-red ancient swords at once. Wait, didn't that thing literally slice my grandson? His ancient artifact was trashed. You're telling me that monster can just use ancient tools whenever it wants? The elders go dead silent. Nobody wants to talk about that thing. It's too terrifying. Every time they think about it, it's like a massive shadow looming over their hearts, literally making it hard to breathe. Back in the flashy main hall, reporters are spamming their cameras at this young Zhao guy, leaving him with nothing but a forced awkward smile. The guest list is stacked with the city's biggest names, so he's got to keep it together and maintain that young master aura. Zhao Hongzhou, currently acting as the backbone for the Gu family, was supposed to be chilling in the hospital for some peace and quiet, but the elders literally dragged him out of bed to attend this summit. All these perfect defensive lines the elders set up are just boring, cringe, and completely useless in his eyes. He's out there soloing the deepest parts of Taihang, coming face to face with that ancient god-tier entity. To him, these great families are straight-up fodder that can't even take a single hit. They're basically toys in the palm of his hand. Our boy low-key wants to tell the family elders and his grandpa to stop sweating. All their grand schemes are useless. You might as well just lie down and accept your fate. When the Lord of Taihang marks you for death, you're cooked no matter what you do. As he spots Li Xiaoxi, Li Shishang gives a slight nod. The solo carry of the Li family is rocking a mature look, hair tied back, looking absolutely elegant and high class. Li Shishang sends a private message. I've got a bad feeling about this. My advice? We bolt the moment we get a chance. Zhao Xingzhou is confused. The venue looks totally normal, so what's the big deal? Li Shishang replies, it's raining in the capital. Remember Taihang Mountain? This downpour is literally his messenger. Finding this place is a walk in the park for him, which means we shouldn't stay here another second. The faster we leave this drama zone, the safer we'll be. Zhao Xingzhou wants to say something back, but suddenly he spots a figure in a black robe with red patterns chilling in the corner of the hall. That vibe, completely out of place in this modern city. As if sensing the gaze, the figure looks up and hits him with a gentle smile. Zhao Xingzhou ignores the confused girl next to him, his voice literally shaking as he mutters to himself, no point running. He's already here. She follows his gaze, sees the smiling youth with that ancient aura, and her heart straight up drops. Back in Taihang, this monster was basically one-shotting everyone on sight. Even if you brought an ancient artifact, he'd just sliced you in the gear in half like it's butter. She personally saw the aftermath when her family tried to recover those artifacts. Total annihilation, not even a scrap left to recover. Without a second thought, she plays it cool and starts drifting toward the edge of the hall. But after a few steps, Li Shishang's brows furrow. She taps into her divine sense and realizes something is sus. Her family's gravekeepers are actually showing up here. These wandering ghosts stuck between secret history and reality. These guys can sniff out spirit veins and uncover ancient tombs full of prime artifacts. They spend their days lurking in the middle of nowhere, where normal folks don't dare tread. So what the hell are they doing, showing up here of all places? Bro, these guys are literally mindless drones. They're just convenient, disposable tools for their masters. But for these tomb rippers to show up in this plaza, the clan geezers must have authorized this hit. Some shadow dweller coldly orders the hit. Strike first. Don't let that beast have time to use his hacks. Back in the hall, Li Shishang's face completely drops. She picks up an ancient rhythmic vibe hidden in the music. It sounds like a hollow wind trying to yoink her soul. With her divine sense active, she's the first to catch on. She whips out a napkin and starts scribbling info like her life depends on it. But this place is locked down by a soul-snatching melody, so she can't even send a DM to Zhao Hongzhou. This whole thing is a setup. They aren't just hunting the Scarlet Flood Dragon of Mount Taihang, they're trying to wipe out everyone in the building. Suddenly, a sharp golden glint flashes behind her. Someone's going for a one-shot kill. Best girl dodges, kicks off her heels like a pro, and flicks that folded napkin out like a high-speed projectile. Watching on the monitor, the old man is impressed. A top-tier talent, you're really gonna let her die like that? Even old Zhao is hesitant. He still wants to warn his precious grandson. The dude with the mocking eyes looks at the figure on the chair and scoffs, why should I care? Once we achieve immortality, descendants are just toys. Don't hold back. The thing inside is itching to come out. The music swells into a straight-up bloody symphony. Li Shishang watches as the crowd drops like flies. Their souls are being ripped out and their blood essence is being drained dry. These wealthy socialites didn't even have a chance to struggle. They're dying in their sleep, trapped in a melodic nightmare. A black shadow blurs past, and a sharp blade aims right for Shisong's head. At the same time, a bronze halberd appears out of nowhere right above her. It's coming down with some seriously insane killing intent. Covered in runes, yep, that's another ancient artifact. The next second, I show up and catch it like it's nothing. I chuck it aside and grab the assassin by the throat. One quick snap of the wrist and his neck is toast. Then I snatch the ancient spear from his cold, dead hands. I use it to pin the shadow lurking behind me straight to the wall. Rip bozo. Li Shisong is literally holding her breath. This terrifying pressure, absolute Sigma energy. She feels someone behind her and turns around to see Zhao Hongzhou covered in blood, giving a bitter smile. Li Shisong, why the hell did I even save these guys? Zhao Hongzhou just sighs. Don't ask me, I have no clue. Who can even guess what goes through a king's mind? I just stare at the blood chi oozing from between my fingers. Tess, what a pain. I tried my best to preserve that guy's blood essence, but honestly, skill issue, it was mission impossible. All this blood and soul energy is merging to birth some high-level, terrifying monster, so I can't let these two survivors kick the bucket just yet. Back in the control room, some guy is mauling, asking why that Crimson Sparrow creature saved the survivors. The response was basically, who cares? It's not in the script, but since there's more blood than expected, they're letting the Gravebreaker open the altar. Once that legend makes his comeback, it doesn't matter who's alive, everyone's just becoming a snack anyway. The main hall, I can hear some creepy chanting. It's ancient, the kind of language that has I've seen at all levels of history baked into it. Shadowy figures are standing up from every direction. They look like NPCs with zero brain cells, just robotically chanting that ancient tongue. The sound is massive, like a divine bell harmonizing about life and death, the literal ebb and flow of existence. Then boom, the entire hall floor just gives up and collapses, plummeting 3,000 meters down into an abyss filled with towering stone pillars. It's pitch black, but then a massive blood-red eye just cracks open in the void. The iris is twisting and condensing, forming something tangible, an actual physical form. A page of an ancient scripture manifests in the pupil, radiating an aura so bleak it's straight up death for anything it looks at. Standing at the bottom of the pit, I watch desiccated corpses rain down like some cursed storm. The air is thick with crimson killing intent. This evil eye is absolutely unhinged, pure tyrannical energy. Rivers of blood are rushing toward it, being absorbed into that ancient scripture. It's bound by massive red chains, and every time it struggles, the whole altar starts catching a vibe, and by vibe I mean an earthquake. I summon my heaven-shrouding cauldron to cover us, pulling those two inside to save their lives. In this bottomless pit, if you don't have a top-tier artifact protecting you, you're basically fodder. As the blood rivers drain out, the evil eye's madness chills out, and it starts actually thinking. It narrows its eye at me, terrifying flames made of flowing ancient runes flickering in its gaze. Li Shisong and Zhao Xingzhou are looking like they've seen a ghost. The sheer pressure from that eye is shattering their mental. Seeing them shook, I just turn and ask, any idea what that thing is? Just as Zhao Xingzhou is about to yap, a beam of crimson light shoots out, turning any corpse it touches into straight-up nothingness. It reaches them in a literal blink of an eye, but the bronze cauldron above my head starts spinning, overflowing with insane life force. The ancient engravings on the cauldron's surface start moving like they're coming to life. Light shatters under those iron hooves. Zhao Xingzhou realizes we either crack the code of this domain's movement, or we straight up delete the boss of this spatial rift, since this whole altar is basically powered by the Evil Eye spirit. The next second, the chains go wild, the Evil Eye glows with pure malice, and the thing actually starts looking smart. I seal those two inside the cauldron, planning to jump the Evil Eye before it fully breaks free from its seals. Out of nowhere, a gnarled, twisted hand appears, grabbing Zhao Xingzhou right by the ankle. It's a living corpse that literally sucks the life force and flesh right out of you. Red scales erupt on my neck as I try to grab it. That hand is already scaly, and its foul energy is straight up trying to corrupt my heaven-shrouding cauldron. The cauldron's runes start spinning, and a fire spirit wreathed in black flame spawns in to incinerate that trash energy. But because the cauldron was busy, our boy Zhao Xingzhou missed his window to get inside. That corpse crawls all over him, drowning him in a bloody mist. His energy spikes as he unleashes a golden rhino ancient art to blast the corpse back, but that withered hand just pierces right through his mana shield, twisting his body until he's barely even human anymore. I lunge forward like a damn railgun to rip through the blood vortex, but I'm too late to stop this nightmare from reviving. A burst of divine fire erupts from the heaven-shrouding cauldron. The fire spirit tries to nuke Zhao's body in that creepy eye, but ends up taking a heavy hit instead. Once the mist clears, a 10-foot-tall humanoid freak is standing there, its right eye glowing with a bloodthirsty crimson light. It's holding a bone blade dripping with blood, and Zhao Xingzhou? Bro is nowhere to be found. The monster locks eyes with me and actually starts yapping. Another Yang Soul Realm great demon, it mutters to itself, since when can this trash world still produce Yang Soul Realm experts? Then it starts talking about turning me into its next snack. I start chanting an ancient killing mantra. The symbols on the cauldron's surface begin to glow and manifest, summoning the true spirits of the dragon elephant and the soaring snake. That ancient blade swings down, decapitating the soaring snake and slicing the legs off the dragon elephant, but these true spirits have infinite HP. even taking out a tribulation branch in an instant. I'm stuck in a stalemate, having to rely on these spirits to stall the monster. Meanwhile, I asked Li Shisong if she had any ancient cheat code scriptures to hard counter these demonic entities. Li Shisong mentions a Buddhist scripture looted straight from the tomb of the Golden Body Arhat. This thing is so high level that just trying to learn the basics would literally end your whole career. I had her share the memory with me so I could peep the contents. Suddenly, my dragon elephant true spirit lets out a massive roar. Chants start flowing from its mouth, vibrating with the holy frequency of the scriptures. Divine Buddha light radiates out, making those evil fodder scream in pure agony. Their souls are literally getting erased under this holy glow. I'm moving like a flood dragon, throwing hands with this monster in a total deathmatch. It's a blades versus scales, pure monster energy. Steel meets scales, carving out bloody scars as they scrap. Suddenly, something starts creeping toward the center of the zone. The monster gets its arms locked down by some nasty killing chains. And then, it takes a massive green bronze tripod straight to the face. Talk about a headache. I'm trying to seal and rip this thing apart, but while the green bronze tripod has insane DPS, its mobility is trash. I literally rip out the monster's right eye and hurl it onto the altar, using the sky-covering tripod to pin down a weird red demonic glow. I look up, ready to delete every single ghost still lagging around the mortal realm. Meanwhile, Guyan pulls up to the meeting room like a boss. The clan elders realize this man is literally triggering a spiritual energy tidal wave. A sword arrow appears, wrapped in high-tier runes. It's glowing with glazed light as it pierces straight through the demonic shadows. The impact sends out a massive shockwave that shakes the whole place. That hidden old man is absolutely shaking in his boots right now. Turns out that arrow was loaded with Vajra-glazed beads, capable of summoning 10,000 Buddhas. The sky is suddenly filled with Buddhas chilling on clouds, staring down that demonic wood gold bell statue. They start chanting, and a massive palm comes falling from the heavens. It literally slams that demonic statue deep into the altar. The tomb destroyer gets caught in the golden AoE ripple. Bro gets flattened instantly as the golden wave washes over him. He's completely erased, like someone just hit delete on his existence. That giant palm presses down on the statue, shattering the bloody aura and burying the demon deep underground. This Buddha versus demon showdown is so intense, the shockwaves could literally flip the entire region upside down. But the moment that massive hand vanishes, everything goes back to normal like nothing ever happened, leaving nothing but a massive crater in the ground. Proof that an ancient Buddha had just descended on these clowns. A display of true Buddhist killing intent, reserved only for those who are beyond saving. After a roar of flames, the elders are finally snapped back to reality, and under the moonlight, a massive pale tiger towers over the ruins of the assembly hall, which is now completely trashed, while its glowing green eyes lock onto these geezers. It's the ferocious tiger of Mount Taihang. What the hell is this beast doing here? Blue lightning flashes, and the tiger instantly blinks right outside the room. Its claws rip through the wall as it looks down on them like total fodder. Gu Yan is just laughing in the corner, enjoying how pathetic these elders look, thinking he moved too fast and didn't get enough time to savor their terrified faces, but then his eyes land on the corpse in the chair. It's old man Zhao Sheng, Zhao Hongzhou's grandfather. His smirk vanishes as the tiger suddenly speaks. "Young master, where is the master?" It checks the altar, but it's so clean there isn't even a single drop of blood left. Oyan explains that this is a spatial rift teleportation array buried under the floor, and once it's activated, it drags everything on the surface straight down. Plus the ones fighting your scarlet snake belong to an ancient great sect that once ruled the world. The imperial capital's layout was built specifically to fuel this altar and keep that clan suppressed, because a clan like that doesn't stay dead easily. The elders finally realize that Gu Yan and this Mount Taihang beast are in cahoots. They want to talk smack, but after looking at the situation, they realize that opening their mouths would be a low IQ move, so they're forced to swallow their pride like cowards. Killing intent flares in the tiger's eyes as it steps forward. If the young master doesn't make it back, you're dead. Deep underground, Zhao Hongzhou wakes up, but his right eye feels off, making him tweak out. Li Shisong starts trolling. "You looked like a Chad while sleeping, why do you look so goofy now?" I see his confusion and just say, "I lent you a drop of my blood." Li Shisong keeps joking, "Hurry up and thank the young master. Our boy literally brought you back from being half a corpse to a living human." Now Zhao Hongzhou is even more lost. He can't wrap his head around why I keep saving their lives, especially since they heard Gu Chuchu had to offer herself up just to get me to negotiate. After all, 35 people on that path were all brutally slaughtered. Finally, Zhao Hongzhou relented, saying, "Fine, since it's come to this, I'll accept this debt for saving my life." I just shook my head and sighed. "Bro, you're actually built different. It's like you low-key didn't even want me to save you." Zhao Hongzhou knew deep down he owed me big time for this favor, but I've got nothing to pay you back with right now. That's honestly making me feel pretty uneasy. See, the Li family always preferred a clear price tag on every transaction. Zhao Hongzhou instinctively clenched his fists. Bro had never been this stressed in his entire life. The pressure radiating off this guy was just too insane. If he accidentally triggered his death flag, he wouldn't be the only one cooked. Li Shisong would definitely get caught in the crossfire too. I paused for a second and then said, "Alright, fine, I'll give you a condition then." I then locked eyes with Li Shisong, who was already plotting her escape, and shouted, "Yo, little girl over there, where do you think you're going?" You really think you can escape this rift? Get your butt over here. You need to hear this condition too. Li Song slumped down looking totally defeated, muttering under her breath, I was just scared you guys were going to throw hands. I asked them if they even knew why I pulled up to the imperial capital. Zhao Hongzhou gave a forced smile and said to cause us trouble. He knew damn well I didn't come to the capital just for a vacation. I straight up told him I'm here to sweep away the trash spirits lingering in the mortal realm. The old fossils get deleted, but the young ones get to stay. I need the young generation to work for me. Once you guys take over your clans, you're going to be my eyes and ears, keeping those great families in check. I stood up as the heaven-suppressing cauldron began to spin. Now, any ideas on how we're getting out of here? I kept my eyes locked on that blood-red figure, a humanoid form woven together by ancient blood-soaked runes. It seemed to be calculating something as blue lightning flickered around it like a beast. It only cared about finding out what happened to the MC, which is the only reason it hadn't already turned these clan elders into mincemeat. As the moonlight faded, it noticed the black mist was starting to close back in. Guyan, the altar is straight up trashed and the stone statue's blood spirit is gone. But that ominous black mist is respawning out of nowhere. Normally, the Vajraglazed seed needs some serious offerings or massive merit to summon a divine Buddha phantom. But right now, our boy has 0 ways to max out its merit points to reach completion. Turns out this Buddhist treasure wasn't even meant for the MC. It was actually a tool to send these wandering ghosts straight to the afterlife. Qingyan is glowing with murderous intent, ready to turn these clan elders into literal meat paste with a single strike. Since the black mist is back, he's done waiting and just wants to wipe out these old farts once and for all. But before he can even make a move, the elders' bodies start swelling up like crazy. Pure terror is frozen on their faces as they start looking absolutely demonic, like they just crawled out of the deepest pits of hell. It happened so fast that these old losers didn't even realize what was hitting them. Then boom, their bodies pop like overinflated balloons. Bolts of blood-red lightning start arching everywhere, twisting into long streaks, surging directly into the massive crack in the center of the altar. Suddenly, a pitch-black hand reaches out from the abyss. The massive demon statue crawls out, rocking 3 heads and 6 arms. This absolute unit has 3 eyes, 4 horns, a green face, and golden fangs. It's a literal mountain of a monster, its massive frame blocking out everything. Its pupils snap open, hungrily hold up twisted souls. Like, Guyan is shook. No way, is that the heaven-shrouding demon statue? He realized that in this world, there isn't a single soul capable of handling this beast. Even that crimson flood dragon from Mount Taihang wouldn't stand a chance. He made it sound hopeless, but honestly, the reality is even more cursed than he described. The demon statue stands tall, literally blocking out the moonlight with its massive frame. That creepy third eye gives them a quick side eye before shifting its gaze elsewhere, almost like it's hunting for something specific. Runes light up on a corner of the altar as the statue winds up a punch that literally tears the earth apart. That one hit sends shockwaves through the entire city. Even the folks at the edge of the capital are feeling the vibration. Through the thick smoke, you can hear low growls like rolling thunder and the heavy whistling of the wind. High above, a massive red entity is now dominating the sky. Down below, Guyan mutters, we better start thinking about how to handle that thing. The crimson flood dragon might be outclassed, but right now it's the only one on the field that can actually throw hands with it. He could have just dipped back to Taihang Mountain and called it a day, but that would mean leaving everyone in this city to get absolutely cooked. Right now I'm just hovering in midair like a boss, staring down this mountain-sized demon statue. I give it a casual wave like I'm just greeting the family pet. This massive pitch-black shadow, literally looking like a whole mountain range, starts moving toward me and slowly bows its head. I flick my wrist and the statue starts shrinking in real time until it's barely 10 inches tall, landing right in my palm. My ancient bronze cauldron manifests behind me and instantly seal that statue inside, done and dusted. Meanwhile, over at Changbai Mountain, this massive bronze-colored figure is hauling it out of the river and onto the shore. It's walking on 2 legs, and this absolute unit carrying a massive fish with its beefy arms. Once it hits the land, it casually rips some dead trees straight out of the ground, sending dust and dirt flying everywhere. These are ancient trees that have been growing for hundreds of years, with roots buried deep into the earth, but this beast just uproots them like they're nothing. Dozens of golden-haired monkeys, each the size of a grown man, come swinging down from the branches, screaming at the top of their lungs, all hail the great king. We knew the king would get our back and settle the score. The beast speaks up, don't celebrate just yet. Tonight you're all feasting like kings. As the moon lights him, you can finally see it. This guy is a massive great ape, his fur glowing with a deep bronze sheen, and his pale face looking like it's carved from solid rock. One of the monkeys helping with the food looks up and says, King, you won't believe the news we got today. The great ape tells him to spill it. The little monkey beams and says, one of our kind just went on a rampage in human territory. The great ape stares down at the phone in the monkey's hand, but the screen just flickers with a few words. This video has been deleted for violating community guidelines. Meanwhile, Guyan is smashing the cameras on his end, completely unaware that some suicidal cameraman actually climbed onto the roof to catch the whole thing on 4K. Standing there looking at the night sky, I realized that demon statue was packing tens of thousands of vengeful souls. All that pure hatred and the screams of those souls? Yeah, that's where the statue gets its insane power. Tens of thousands of them. Meanwhile, the entire crowd at the venue didn't even hit 5 digits. Seems like some ancient bozos tried messing with the altar back in the day and failed miserably, and all those souls have been stacking up until now. Qingyan walks up and asks me, "So, are we heading back to Taihang?" I just shook my head and told him I'm chill for now, then sent him packing while telling him to stay safe. Right then, a big brain idea hit me. I could just send these restless spirits straight to reincarnation. Qingyan gave me a long, meaningful look before turning into a bolt of lightning and dipping. That's when Zhao Xingzhou and Li Shisong piped up behind me. They were bowing low, looking absolutely respectful. I was confused, like, bro, what are you guys even doing? Li Shisong kept it 100% serious and said, "We're pledging our undying loyalty, boss. This is how we humans show our absolute devotion. May the heavens be our witness." Meanwhile, Zhao Xingzhou was acting way more normal. The Zhao and Li clans are basically dealt with now. We were already the ones running the family businesses anyway. Those old fossils dying didn't really affect us at all. We lost some connections, but honestly, trimming those dead branches was the right call. The roots of these great clans run deep into the human world. I can easily chop off the branches and leaves, but I can't touch the roots without letting the whole clan spiral out of control. So why not just make ourselves the masters of these giant trees instead? I narrowed my crystal clear eyes and said, "The Great Bamboo Sacrifice is coming up, and it's going to be hype. Want to go check it out with me?" In the dimly lit old streets of the imperial capital, we were listening to a storyteller outside a shop dropping some deep lore. Rumor has it this old man is a legendary storyteller, and since it's festival season, a huge crowd had already gathered. The old man's voice was booming and crystal clear, carrying that raspy, seasoned vibe that only comes with age as he spoke. Today is the first of the month on the Great Yan calendar, the month of the Great Bamboo Sacrifice. So let's dive into the legend behind this whole celebration. They say inside the ancestral temple you live like a god, and under the wooden gates, legends are born. This temple is where the high priest of the Great Bamboo resides, the one who rules over the ghosts, gods, and the balance of yin and yang for the entire kingdom. Back then, the Great Yan dynasty suffered a brutal 3-year drought, and the heavens wouldn't drop a single ounce of rain on them. But why was that? Turns out, up in the north, there was this legendary girl in green. This girl in blue, the daughter of heaven and earth named Ba, descended to the south, packing some serious divine power and carrying a mysterious green lamp, which legends claim could literally incinerate the entire Yellow River. Then there's this great shaman named Su, flanked by a menacing red dragon, who trekked across 4 massive mountain ranges and the golden sands of Mobe just to track down where Nuba lived, sparking a reality-shattering showdown that rocked the world. The eternal heaven-shattering war. This creepy ghost-faced geezer starts chanting in a low, gravelly voice, his tone seasoned by time, trying to drag the listeners back to the vast primordial era to witness a sky filled with straight-up immortals and Buddhas. The great shaman finally returned to the divine capital, performing a ritual dance that made the gods themselves bow down. Today's great festival is basically a massive tribute to this absolute unit's legendary feats for the world. Once he finished yapping, he scanned the crowd and spotted me in the corner just as I turned to leave. I looked down, and out of nowhere, a golden leaf had materialized in my hand. The old man stroked his beard and whispered under his breath, "It's that person from Mount Taihang. I've been camping here for 3 days, waiting for this festival to start, and man, the crowd here is like a tidal wave. Even the chaos that hit the capital a few days ago couldn't ruin the hype vibes of this grand event." Of course, this piece was only possible because Zhao Hongzhou and Li Shi were putting in serious overtime these past few days. Everything's stable now, and while plenty of people got smoked in that recent scheme, they were all just replaceable fodder anyway. Over at the Wutai Mountain courtyard, Chu Shan was chilling on a tree branch, tilting her head, making a 6 sign with her hands and holding it over her head, while softly humming some tune. When she saw me coming back, our girl rubbed the back of her head, acting all shy for once, saying she couldn't gain any enlightenment at all. Lately, she even swapped her habit of shaking tree branches during the day to studying the monk's path all night, even going as far as eating vegan and chanting sutras with the temple monks. I just cracked a smile and said, "My bad, I messed up." She doesn't need to follow the path of some monk, because she's already hiking a path that's uniquely hers. The monk spent enough time with her to see the truth clearly. I was the one who misjudged her. This path, according to the ancient scrolls, is the path of true martialism, leaving Chu Xian straight up stunned. It seems both the monk and I know who she really is better than she does herself, so I finally asked her if she was ready to get out of here. At the end of the day, it was her call to make. She's hesitating right now because no matter how much she craves to see the world outside, this is still the place where she's been rooted for literal centuries. After thinking it over, Chu Shan's like, "Bet, let's hit your place up first." The moment he looks up, the vibe completely shifts. I just smirk and flex a massive invisible hand, literally uprooting the whole ancient ginkgo tree from the courtyard like it's nothing, leaving behind nothing but dust and a massive crater in the yard. Once we're back, I'm just chilling on a branch, watching King Yan wake up and asking how long he's been waiting. Then I spot this tiny white fox poking its head out from Daihu's massive paws. The little fluff ball is snuggled up in the tiger's grip, eyes sparkling with pure spiritual energy. Qing Yan explains that the spirit fox basically sacrificed its cultivation path back then, meaning there's zero chance of it hitting a breakthrough ever again. Now it's just a regular pet with a bit of spiritual flavor. Foxes don't live long, so I'll just stick by its side until the end. At least it won't have to spend its days running for its life in the wild anymore. I just smile and say, oh, by the way, check out this loot. I whip out the sky-covering cauldron, and the runes start glowing like crazy. A few sealed souls start drifting out, and these guys look absolutely cooked, twisted from all the torture. You can low-key see the faces of some old geezers in there. Plus, there's this ominous red glow deep in their souls, the legendary demonic laws. I'm like, I was originally going to send these fodder souls to reincarnation, but since they wouldn't play nice, I'll just grant their wish instead, and let them stay as restless ghosts for eternity. Welcome to the world of the living. Then I drag these twisted souls over to Qingyan. Daihu is shook, saying, I thought you were some holy being who'd hate this kind of dark art. Ever heard of becoming a ghost for the tiger? It's an old-school legend, where souls killed by a tiger become its Chang ghosts doing its dirty work, basically serving as scouts to find the tiger its next meal. Suddenly, Qingyan's glowing green eyes flare up, he slams his staff down, and these eerie shadows start crawling out. Turns out, he's already got a whole squad of refined Chang ghosts ready to go. This phantom is dragging a lantern-like tool, hurting those fossil-tier souls I brought along. Cursed wails everywhere as their souls struggle against the corruption of that savage energy. Look at those twisted faces. These ghosts make actual demons look like amateurs. Too bad for them. Every single one of these runners is getting locked in that lantern. Blue flames cooking them alive in a brutal process. Chuxian isn't about that life and immediately covers his ears. Deadass, the crying from these old geezers is straight up ear rape. 30 minutes later, those souls are fully processed and condensed into several edgy, hunched-over phantoms. You can see a cold, sinister glint in their eyes. Bro, they're still out here scheming. But now their 200 IQ plays are all for the sake of the malice. Their only goal is making the boss happy. Gucci Qingyan grunts, and the ghost squad instantly vanishes into his shadow. At the end of the day, these summons are just side pieces. Real Gs rely on their own lethality in a fight. Our lightning tiger licks his claws, getting flashbacks to that time he was getting jumped and pinned down at Taihang. If his lightning was actually cracked enough to break that woman's formation, our MC wouldn't have had to come and carry him. By the way, is that great bow working out for you? It took some damage during the crossfire that day, and it finally snapped for good after sniping that diamond glaze arrow at the human capital. What about the array flags? Wei Kaijin's flags were mid to begin with, and I don't have a repair manual. They're basically trash now. Li Yan stays quiet. I've already memorized the lightning law engraved on that bow. It's been a huge help. I've been grinding my understanding of it these past few days. The array markings are useless to me though, so I just toss them aside. Qingyan catches the vibe. Master, do you need some ancient artifacts that fit your style? It's just that I'm dipping from Taihang today for a long trip. Wait, where to? Qingyan is shook. Our boy points toward the stars over the western Kunlun Mountains. He knows he needs a massive power-up for this journey. Qingyan realizes that if Taihang has awakened beings, those other ancient mountain ranges are definitely crawling with monsters too. Kunlun Mountain is the OG of all mountains, the #1 divine mountain under heaven. Our MC definitely needs some insurance if he's heading to Kunlun. After all, he's entering someone else's turf now. His mountain god of Taihang, Qingyan figured she had no business telling our MC what to do, but with the era of the Great Awakening about to hit its peak, heading to the far west was basically a suicide mission. Can I tag along with you, Lord? Qingyan hesitated for a second before finally shooting her shot. Chuxian, who was busy feeding birds on a branch, did a total double take. Her hand froze midair, the fruit not even reaching the beak, before the bird unceremoniously snatched the snack right out of her fingers. Little kitty, you just looking for an excuse to go out and flex on some fools? She teased. Yeah, Qingyan muttered, feeling a bit called out. I'm just worried that if I leave, Mount Taihang will be completely defenseless. Look, you're a king among these awakened scrubs, but since you haven't actually ascended to the next life tier, you're bound to run into some real smoke. Li Xian's trip to the imperial capital already took out the trash, and now that the Gu family has been wiped, he's keeping a close eye on Zhao Xingzhou and Li Shishuang. As long as those two are still heading their clans, the Zhao and Li families will basically be his eyes and ears, keeping those pesky mortals from snooping around Mount Taihang. So for now, nobody near Taihang is crazy enough to mess with these mountains, but with the world going through this massive change, some peerless monsters are bound to spawn eventually. It's a literal jungle out there, and he isn't exactly vibing with the uncertainty. But ascending to a higher state of existence? That's not something you can just do overnight, bro. Isn't heading to the Kunlun Mountains even more of a death trap, though? You might be a king to these scrubs, but did you forget you can't even survive a single casual move from me? Our boy just gave a smug smirk, his tone totally chill. I know Kunlun is a nightmare, but once I leave Taihang, I'm not just that same old Crimson Flood Dragon anymore. If there's something above king level out there, then finally I might actually get to experience a real fight for once. But if an above king beast raids Taihang, you're basically fodder. You won't be able to hold the fort. Damn, this guy was straight up flaming her for being too weak to even spar with him. Qingyan Tigerface pouted as she thought it over. It's about that time, Li Xian said, tossing the last seed to the birds, dusting off his hands and standing up, causing the entire ancient camphor tree to shake like crazy. Suddenly, a massive unit covered in crimson iron scales uncoiled and took flight, exhaling a thick mist as he hovered beneath the canopy. The tree's sky-piercing canopy can't even hide this absolute unit's body anymore. This red flood dragon is perched on the ancient tree like a living wildfire, looking straight up menacing. Li Tichan looks up as the sky-covering cauldron releases a massive surge of cyan mystical energy. At the same time, our boy starts channeling his earth element arts. Even though he's only scratched the surface of this technique, digging a hole for a tree, light work. The spot is right in an open area near the old camphor tree, no bushes, just some weeds. Word on the street is that people are top-tier spirit stones for plants near the dens of awakened beings. He's out here wondering how much this patch of grass could actually net him. Li Tichan shakes his head and flexes the sky-covering cauldron, using that cyan energy to plant an ancient ginkgo tree. Thanks to the wood element nourishment, the roots dig deep in seconds and the soil seals up perfectly. Just like that, the old camphor tree has a new neighbor, this massive ginkgo. As the ginkgo leaves rustle, a seductive female voice drifts out from within. Hey, could you at least try to be a bit more gentle? You're the one who said a little pain was nothing, our boy retorts. The MC just shrugs his shoulders, completely unbothered. Meanwhile, Qing Yan is low-key confused, her green eyes struggling to process the scene. This ginkgo tree is straight up radiating Buddhist energy, but the Tiger Master is out here cultivating a path of demonic slaughter. Their Taos are basically polar opposites. Honestly, they're literally like night and day. Chushan's slaughter path is way too aggressive and fierce, while the ginkgo spirit is all about that no-conflict Zen life. You guys should try living together for a while, Li Tichan suggests. Use each other's strengths to patch up your own cultivation. Besides, she's already attained the Buddha hand. Enlightening under this tree is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This kind of chance is basically a legendary teardrop in the cultivation world. On the other side, Chushan's voice rings out. Yo, Second Tiger, how's the vibe here? Li Tichan says it's elite. He thought she'd be cooped up in some dusty cave. If that were the case, he'd just satisfy his curiosity and dip for a better spot. But now, the girl draws out her voice. I'm staying here for a few decades. The human world is mid anyway. Nothing to see there. Chushan shakes his head. Watching mountains and rivers is way more Sigma than dealing with people. On the flip side, Qingyan isn't nearly as hyped as Chushan is about the new setup. So, when's the move? Big Hu stays silent, locked in deep thought. Li Xian catches a glimpse of the first light breaking over the eastern horizon. Even as the starlight fades, the heavenly bodies still command the sky. As the first rays of dawn hit western Kunlun, they illuminate a massive beast slumped in a pool of its own blood. Its torso is completely ripped open, exposing jagged white bone and a gruesome mess of internal organs. A literal lake of blood has pooled on the ground beneath it. Suddenly, a dark shadow rises from the massive carcass, spreading its wings. It's an absolute unit of a predator, a raptor so fierce its beak looks like a butcher's blade, drenched in gore with feathers as hard as black steel. With every flap of those metallic wings, a wicked gale shrieks through the gaps in its plumage. Its lethal talons easily crush the skull of its prey. This beast is straight up devouring this newly evolved creature alive. Once the sun fully rises, it takes to the skies, not even sparing a second glance at the leftover scraps. As the massive shadow glides through the peaks, the wind pressure alone snaps trees like they're mere toothpicks. At the same time, deep within the mountain range, other terrifying entities are waking up. They're all moving in the same direction, chasing the light of the morning sun. Those silhouettes look like ancient demons returning to the mortal realm. Mountains bow and forests flatten wherever they pass. Chapter 27, Guided by the Stars. As night falls and the Milky Way glimmers above, a massive crimson entity slips into the current, quietly ditching Taihang. Li Xian's plan is to follow the Taihang River into the Yellow River, then push upstream all the way to the western highlands. The water masks his energy from the rest of the world. Nobody's gonna know he's left the building. It's a much cleaner move than flying through the air like some flashy amateur. Honestly, his flood dragon form is just as cracked in the water as it is in the sky. The only drag is following the river's bends, making it impossible to move in a straight line. Deep in the river, the local fish and shrimp scramble to clear a path for the boss. A scale-armored monster streaks through the depths like a bolt of lightning. He's so massive that it's impossible to even see his full form at once. His coiled body looks freaking endless in the dark water. You're really just gonna leave my demon statue back in Taihang like that? The pitch-black silence of the riverbed, a voice echoes in Li Xian's ear. Not just the statue. If I could, I'd have dumped you off with the Crimson Flood Dragon too. Before Li Xian dipped from Taihang, he left behind that terrifying demon statue he snagged from the Emperor's chart. That demon statue basically planted a soul key deep inside the spirits of those clan elders. So our boy let Qingyan cook, refining those elder souls straight into demon thralls. Talk about a win-win. These old farts didn't want to reincarnate anyway, so he just granted their wish. Plus, it makes it way easier for Qingyan to boss that demon statue around. Even though it lost thousands of ancient souls it had been hoarding since forever, once this unit boot its powers enough to hard stop a Yang Spirit Realm Great Demon. Or better yet, straight up delete them. At least that's the kind of power the Blood-Red Shadow hyped up to him. Bro, you're heading to Kunlun Spirit Mountain but didn't even bring the statue that can tank a Yang Spirit Demon King? Leaving your best defense behind. That's some invincible levels of confidence right there. The voice sighed, basically saying, if you think I'm being reckless, just say it to my face. From the bottom of the river, the red flood dragon stared at the stars, where glowing runes lit up the sky like cosmic GPS markers. The grand bamboo sacrifice triggered some ancient seal script to blaze across the heavens. Even after the ceremony ended, those ancient runes stayed pinned to the sky like they were waiting for something. I'm not sure if these star runes will ever show up again, or if Western Kunlun is about to have a massive glow-up or a total meltdown. Either way, I can't just sit around and wait. Taihang is my home turf, so nothing can happen to it. Besides, it's just one statue that hits like a Yang Spirit Realm expert anyway. If it's gone, it's gone. Li Jian literally couldn't care less. According to the Blood Red Shadow, the Yang Spirit Realm is the real deal. It's the fourth major stage on the path of cultivation. At this level, you're basically a king among millions of living beings. You can even forge a golden body for your primordial soul. At that point, you're pretty much impossible to kill for good. When he talks about rising beings, he's just referring to noobs who just started their cultivation journey, transitioning from the Haotian stage into the Xiantian stage, which is only the second stage, by the way. Qingyan is currently at the third stage, the Great Giant Spirit Realm, where cultivators of that era would forge their soulbound treasures. They'd keep them in their sea of consciousness, nourishing them with blood essence to create ultimate trump cards. And our boy here, he's already at the Yang stage, the level after the Giant Spirit Realm, basically making him a regional demon king. But for real, you're a straight-up monster. Only at the Yang Spirit Realm, yet you somehow deleted one of my clones. Forget that for a second. Do you really have zero memories of the era you were sealed in, or why you even got locked up in the first place? Li Xian asked. This shadow clearly remembers the power scaling and the ranks, the cultivation paths and some secret techniques, but when it comes to the history of the previous era, his mind is a total blank. Our boy isn't worried about being scammed, though. The shadow spirit was literally branded by the heaven-covering cauldron, so he can't even think about betraying him. Li Xian is just asking in hopes that this shadow might remember a few crumbs of intel. I'm not even a full soul, I'm just a tiny fragment of an external avatar spirit, the shadow says. Most of my memories were forcibly nuked when you suppressed me with that weird-looking cauldron. Honestly, the fact that I even have a consciousness right now is straight up unbelievable to me. And yet you're really out here expecting me to remember all that? The shadow says, shrugging his shoulders. As for why I still remember the cultivation realms and all that other stuff, he shakes his head. To us, those things are too basic. Knowing that info is like knowing how to eat or breathe, it's just pure instinct. Qi Jiao stays silent for a long time. Is this really the power of the True One realm? The sixth great realm of the cultivation path, the ancient scrolls call beings at this level lords. When asked how terrifying the True One realm sect ancestors were, the Bloody Shadow kept it 100 with him. If it's just an average Yang god, his avatar could literally delete them with a flick of his wrist. One-shotted. Imagine being one of the top-tier powerhouses of the current era, only to realize you'd get folded by a single avatar that's been sealed for tens of millions of years. It's not even a fight, it's a slaughter. Qi Jiao exhales at the bottom of the river, sending a trail of bubbles popping to the surface. Bro realizes his road to the top is still way too long. The current gets wild as they approach a waterfall, the crashing water sounding like straight thunder. Qi Jiao is heading west, where the terrain starts getting steeper. The splashing water scares off a little deer drinking by the shore. Suddenly the water flashes and this absolute unit of a creature raises its head. His rugged face is covered by a demon mask that looks like it's made of ancient bronze. Water cascades off his iron scales and massive horns, forming a mini waterfall for a split second. That dragon-like creature stands up, his red body looking like a pillar of flame rising from the river. He clears the waterfall in an instant and dives back into the depths. By the time the last ripple hits the shore, everything is dead silent, like nothing ever happened. Deep within the Kunlun Mountains, right on the cliffside, there's a cave carved directly into the jagged rock. The wind is literally cutting like a blade, leaving deep gashes in the cliffside. At the cave entrance, there's a fox statue with 4 sticks of incense and festive red couplets, giving off some seriously eerie vibes. Great Fox Immortal, have mercy. Please, spare my life. I'll grind my cultivation harder, I swear I'll satisfy you. Inside the cave, this middle-aged dude is kowtowing for his life, his chubby body curled up like he's trying to glitch into the rocks. He's bowing toward a void of absolute darkness and silence. Lord Fox Immortal. Please, Lord Fox Immortal. The guy is straight up howling, snot and tears, making a disgusting mess of his face. He's basically swallowing his own tears as they drip, while several figures sit cross-legged around him like statues. They just watch him, blubbering, their eyes showing zero motion, total NPC energy. Their skin has this weird polished glaze like ceramic dolls, looking more like clay figures than actual humans. Then a pair of glowing blue phoenix eyes opens in the darkness, staring down at our boy. Honestly, I really did trust you. I believed you'd master the great law eventually. A seductive, lazy voice echoes through the cave. Before the guy can even feel relieved, the voice drops a bombshell. But rules are rules. Someone has to be eliminated every single day. Remember that guy you competed against a few days ago? Didn't we just toss him out? You were totally down with the rules back then, weren't you? His pupils shrink and his face goes pale. He knows he's cooked. Then, I want to challenge her. He looks up with a twisted face and points a trembling finger at a young girl sitting in the corner. Fair enough, fair enough. The voice in the dark sounds nonchalant. After all, it's just following the script. Wu Jingzhao, it looks like your uncle wants a piece of you. Chapter 28, Infinite. The girl doesn't even blink. She just stands up and walks into the center of the cave like a total boss. The uncle stands opposite her, wiping the snot off his face as he tries to lock in. He knows it's game over for real. This whole nightmare started as a company summer trip to the Kunlun Mountains to see some mythical scenery. Back then, he was just a low-level manager acting like a big shot. He even brought his cousin's family along. Out of that family, while they were traveling, everything hit the fan and a massive disaster struck. The clouds over the Kunlun peaks literally shattered, revealing an endless range of majestic mountains stretching for thousands of miles. These peaks were so high they were practically touching the stars. Terrifying beasts started crawling out from the depths of the range, straight up slaughtering any outsiders wandering into the Kunlun Mountains. Our group was trapped with no way out of this death zone. Staying here was basically a one-way ticket to the afterlife. But then a fox immortal who was worshipped there stepped in and saved their sorry hides. She moved them away from the bloodbath and into this cave perched on a steep cliff. This fox immortal, whose power level was straight up unknown, even gave them a cultivation technique to practice. They thought they'd cheated death, but they were actually walking into a different kind of nightmare. Just when everyone was celebrating, the fox immortal dropped the survival rules for the cave. Rule 1. Every day, the weakest link in their cultivation gets tossed out. Rule 2. The loser being kicked out can challenge anyone else to a duel. If they win, they swap spots, and the person challenged has zero right to refuse. What was supposed to be a sacred land turned into a literal battle royale, and their numbers dropped until only 10 people were left today. A few days ago, this guy was the one who challenged his own cousin to a duel, who also happens to be the father of the girl standing right in front of him. After winning, he personally yeeted his cousin off the cliff. From what he could see, the girl's cultivation was definitely mid and shouldn't be up to par, but somehow he was the one being discarded today. He thought maybe the fox immortal's eyes are failing her, because there's no way it should be like this. The dude gulps, staring at the girl while his mind races with schemes. Again, a voice echoes from the shadows, and our guy charges in, his body glowing with a faint blue light as he closes the gap. In just 2 breaths, he's already swinging a fist at her head, his face looking absolutely demonic. He wanted that first strike advantage. With his martial arts background, he was sure this one punch would end her whole career. But the next second, he gets swallowed whole as an eerie blue flame erupts inside the cave. The girl opens her palms, the flickering flames lighting up her stone-cold face and the absolute despair on the man's face. The peak of their cultivation was supposed to be mastering these flames, and this girl was somehow already at the finish line. Tee-hee. The fox immortal giggles. Whether she's hyped about the girl's progress or just laughing at this clown who didn't know his place, no one knows. Our boy plunges into the mist, falling further and further as the wind slices through him like 1,000 knives. Just as he's about to taste the pavement, the moonlight gets snuffed out by a massive shadow looming over him. He forces his eyes open only to see a pair of emerald wings blotting out the sky, and before he can blink, those iron talons have him in a death grip. The wind howls as this azure eagle takes flight, leaving the clouds in the dust. Looking up, he's basically touching the stars at this point. While our guy is still processing the panic, the azure eagle slams him down onto a jagged mountain cliff. Its beak drops like a guillotine, slicing his body clean in half. Rip. Bro didn't even have the strength to let out a final scream. Just like that, he's swallowed whole in 2 or 3 bites. A flash of satisfaction flickers in the azure eagle's eyes. So, how was it? A decent snack to replenish your energy, right? A seductive voice purrs from the shadows of the cliff. A 4-story tall fox stands there, and despite her beastly form, she's radiating some serious best girl energy. Just enough to recover a bit of the stamina I burned through yesterday, the azure eagle growls. That treasure is almost ripe. I need to break through one more time to even have a seat at the table. Time is running out, and those other monsters are definitely cooking up ways to level up too. I need a status report on how that pill you're refining is coming along. One more ingredient and then another, and you'll be ready to ascend to the pseudo-god realm. Perfect. The azure eagle lets out a sharp cry, giving the fox a menacing side-eye that screams, "Don't even think about betraying me. Once I secure this legacy, I'll make sure you get your share of the loot. But if you're planning a backstab, I'll drop everything just to make sure you're deleted first. You know the vibes, even if you reach the pseudo-god realm, I can still end you like it's nothing. Obviously, I've always been a smart fox. Foxes don't do anything stupid." The fox giggles, her voice lost in the wind. Without another word, the azure eagle vanishes from her sight in an instant. This is what a true king of a terrifying race looks like. These absolute units can slaughter pseudo-gods while still at the great demon level and even go toe-to-toe with a yang god. As night falls over the ancient ferry of the Yellow River, the ancient structures stand tall guarding this land. Abandoned cargo ships and broken vessels sit adrift, ghostly and silent, floating aimlessly on the dark water. Like a literal titan using the river as its personal king-sized bed, the banks were dead silent, with only the occasional searchlight from the distant shore flickering across the water. Wait, a crewman on a cargo ship rubs his eyes in disbelief. Yo, what's the deal? The sonar just pinged a massive unit behind us, but it vanished in a heartbeat. Probably just some underwater rocks or a sandbar, bro. The other guy just shrugs it off. During summer, the water levels are high enough to hide all sorts of reefs and islets. Sonar glitches are standard. Just keep your eyes peeled and don't wreck the ship on a reef, alright? But our young guy isn't buying it, sensing something is definitely off. They've been sailing these waters for years. This stretch is supposed to be smooth as glass with 0 reefs. With all the weird stuff happening globally lately, a terrifying thought starts brewing in his mind, sending a massive chill straight down his spine. Deep underwater, it was pitch black, not a single ray of light remained. Li Tixian senses the ship above, masks his presence, and continues blitzing through the water like a bolt of lightning. Past midnight, our Crimson Flood Dragon reaches a desolate, winding stretch of the river, a total no man's land. He comes to a halt, circling like a predator in the depths, his massive frame churning the river water into a frenzy, creating a colossal deep-water vortex. His crimson iron scales flex as a thick wave of killing intent fills the area, that monstrous head glaring into the eerie dead silence ahead. Something's plotting in the shadows. No wonder the vibes were so rancid. Turns out this entire sector has been completely wiped of all life without anyone noticing. The fish and shrimp are gone, the vegetation is withered. Our boy just stepped right into a literal death zone. But how does a place like this even exist in the Yellow River? Something is seriously wrong here. As the currents swirl violently, Li Tixian spots something lurking in the shadows, playing hide-and-seek with its presence masked almost perfectly. But this clown is actually trying to hide inside the river. Does it really think it can hide from the golden bamboo flood dragon's eyes? They're straight up burning now. The flood dragon is the true goat of the river. Every aquatic scrub should be bowing down. Who does this guy think he is, trying to scheme against the king? Suddenly, a deep crimson shadow, bottomless as an abyss, tears through the water wall and slams straight into that lurking beast. Scales and lava-like armor grind together, sending massive shockwaves through the water. We're looking at a massive black gold turtle, an absolute unit of a beast. It's like this creature is literally carrying a whole mountain on its back. But even this monster gets dropped to the riverbed by our boy's Crimson Dragon Strike. That mountain-sized shell? Yeah, it's already starting to crack. Li Tixian just looks down at the giant turtle with that 0 given energy. His iron scales pulse with a deadly rhythm as the slaying scriptures activate. They glow like the morning stars, ready to straight up delete this creature from existence. The fish dragon, ghost coffin, Ziyuan, spare my life. Lord Dragon, mercy. The giant turtle flails its limbs, desperate to survive. It's stretching its neck out as far as it can, screaming for its life. But our Crimson Flood Dragon doesn't care. The scriptures keep chanting. He's radiating pure, unadulterated killing intent. The old turtle is shaking. This aura feels like 10,000 blades piercing his skin. Bro is literally paralyzed with fear. Divine runes are flickering within the ancient scriptures. This is a top-tier, heaven-grade slaying scripture. The turtle thought he was safe behind that cheat code mountain shell, even against a stronger boss. Most predators wouldn't even bother with such a hard-to-chew shell, but today he ran into a literal flood dragon. And not just any dragon, but one packing high-tier slaying scriptures. Talk about bad luck. Like, who just starts throwing hands without even saying hello first? The old turtle is molting, but our boy is about to finish him off. If he doesn't speak up now, he's getting clapped right here, right now. Lord Dragon, chill, put the technique away. I know why this place is going crazy. There's an ancient artifact from the last era down there, a massive opportunity. I'm just the guy guarding it. I didn't mean to offend you, boss. Zero beef, I swear. The old turtle starts nodding his head like crazy, basically kowtowing for his life. A hint of amusement flashes across Li Tixian's bronze-colored face. Bro only pulled out the killing intent to bait the old turtle into spilling the tea. This dead water zone was too quiet for a bottom feeder like him to be the boss. There had to be a hidden secret. Li Tixian wasn't about to waste time. If the old turtle didn't start talking, he was going to catch these hands for real. Most people couldn't crack that shell, but our boy has 1,000 ways to turn him into turtle soup. Talking about suppressing someone by an entire major realm, according to the Bloody Figure's description, our Crimson Flood Dragon is basically the final boss of his cultivation level. Once he leaves Taihang, he's not just some local mountain god. He's a great flood dragon demon. In this world, everyone's fighting for that top spot, so there's no room for being polite to anyone. As the killing intent from the scriptures faded, the Crimson Dragon spoke. His voice boomed like underwater thunder, making the old turtle's meridians go haywire. The fear in the old turtle's eyes hit a new peak, and his mind was racing with pure chaos. How is it even possible for such a cracked entity to exist in this day and age? He'd been cultivating in these waters for centuries and never heard of him, but then a realization hit him, and he low-key started celebrating. But he instantly buried that thought deep in his soul, terrified this savage dragon would catch him lacking and see through his plan. Yes, of course. This humble one will lead you to those waters right now. Li Tixian finally took the pressure off the old turtle. This mountain-sized unit of a turtle started bowing and scraping. Honestly, how does a creature with a literal mountain on its back even bow? The way that ancient turtle head was bobbing around. It looked suspicious as hell, straight up devious. The old turtle led the way into the dead silent depths, his massive limbs rowing as he dragged his heavy body forward. Every now and then, the old man would peek back at the Crimson Dragon, only to see those golden candle-like eyes staring into his soul, making him retreat into his shell like a total coward. When he looked again, the winding dragon was gone. Only the quiet, empty current remained. You've got 15 minutes. If we aren't there by then, I'm done walking, and you're becoming my next meal. The figure sitting cross-legged on the shell spoke with ice in his voice. His long hair drifted like ink in the silent river, and beneath him a majestic, blinding golden light radiated. The old turtle felt a soul-crushing weight. Bro literally carries a mountain, yet this guy's aura alone was pinning him down. Instantly, he turned his limbs into high-speed oars, ripping through the river as his massive body went into overdrive. The waves parted for Li Tixian, who gave a satisfied nod. In under 15 minutes, the turtle brought Li Tixian to the location. The path kept sloping down. Above was total darkness and below was a bottomless abyss. Who would have thought the Yellow River had a place this deep? Down, down, they just kept going deeper. This old turtle isn't slacking, he's actually zooming through the water. But even after diving for a solid 15 minutes, there's still no sign of that golden sand riverbed. Inside the sky-shrouding cauldron's rift, that blood-red figure starts manifesting. Li Tixian locks in, his inner fire burning bright. He quickly spots some mystical patterns swirling within the currents. These ancient runes are basically the source code for this area's laws. They're not even in the Yellow River anymore. This is a hidden pocket dimension tucked away from the world. Since the old turtle knows his way around, this place isn't some sealed-off death trap like that last altar. Most of the ancient relics those capital families flex with actually come from hidden rifts like this one. Usually it's not that deep, at least not for awakened beings like our boy. That capital altar was a total anomaly, a high-level sealing zone for a true one. Lord Dragon, please don't rush me. This humble servant is doing his best, but this water is bottomless. The old turtle is literally shaking and crying right now, thinking Li Tixian's focus meant he was about to catch a fade. He's terrified the Crimson Flood Dragon will lose patience and turn him into turtle soup. I'll keep going, I'll put in the work, I swear. But for real, this abyss is deep, deep. I've been chilling in this spot for ages, and even I've never seen the bottom. That weird artifact floated up from the void during an earthquake, still covered in broken ceiling chains. The turtle keeps yapping, but he doesn't notice Li Tixian's expression doing a complete 180. Wait, this isn't a ceiling point? The blood-red figure reads the Crimson Flood Dragon's mind like a book. It calmly says, you think ancestor-level beings are just spawn camping everywhere? They're not common fodder. Whatever's down there is likely just a rare relic, exactly like this turtle said. Our boy stays silent and just shuts his eyes. He waits until the water gets so cold it's literally bone-chilling, before opening his eyes to realize this isn't just a river anymore. This is straight up the yellow springs of the underworld. He notices the shell of the old turtle he's riding is starting. It's like a whole-ass formation is wrapping around his body, blocking out that 9 nether-level chill. Even the old turtle had to pop his defensive skills just to stay alive, trying to tank the freezing energy leaking from the abyss. But our boy Li Xian, he's just built different and can still tank this hit raw, thinking he could probably dive even deeper if he wanted to. But there's literally no need for that right now. He just wants to see what kind of game this old turtle is trying to play. When the turtle saw the Red Flood Dragon's insane power, a flash of greed crossed his eyes. Bro thought he was being sneaky, but to Li Xian and Shengshi he was basically transparent. Lord Dragon, we've finally arrived. The old turtle stopped diving and flared his formation, but even then a layer of frost started coating his shell. The old turtle kept glancing at the figure on his back. And man, that resistance to the freezing chill is straight up terrifying. He originally planned to use this yin-cold hell to test the Red Flood Dragon's limits, basically trying to calculate his chances of success in his head, but the result, it's making him lose his damn mind. But he's already in too deep. There's no turning back now. The treasure hidden in the cold abyss is actually afraid of this Red Flood Dragon, and that ancient artifact is exactly why this place is a total dead zone. The old turtle whispered under his breath. Li Xian looked up and saw a crystal-looking coffin just chilling there in the middle of the endless darkness. And it sized exactly like an ancient human coffin. The coffin is wrapped in arm-thick iron chains, surrounded by the absolute silence and darkness of the abyss. But wait, this coffin is actually glowing with a silver-white light, almost like there's a hidden moon behind it casting a soft glow, letting you see every ripple in the water under that radiance. The old turtle stopped a safe distance away and didn't move an inch, while Li Xian just sat there on the shell, vibing. Why isn't he moving? The old turtle cursed in his head. Why is this flood dragon so damn calm right now? Does he have that much peak-level confidence? Or is he just so OP that he should be charging in and snatching that ancient artifact already? My lord, that creepy coffin is surrounded by some seriously scary freezing energy. A lowlife like me can't get any closer, otherwise I would have snatched it ages ago, and it wouldn't have waited here until today. The old turtle tucked his tail in shame as Li Xian asked, exactly how old are you anyway? Out of nowhere, Li Xian drops this question on him. The old turtle is shook, but still caps, I've lived in these waters for like 400 years, what's with the sudden interrogation? Over 1,000 years old, no wonder you think you're slick enough to hide your schemes. Li Xian's tone is cool as a cucumber, while the old turtle's face is straight up doing gymnastics. The old clown is still trying to keep his mask on, forcing himself to keep playing the innocent servant role. What do you mean, master? This humble one doesn't quite get it. Bro, you were literally grinning the moment I walked in here, planning to use that creepy ancient coffin as an altar. To sacrifice me? You're really trying to offer me up to these waters alive. Boom, the turtle's pupils shrink and the killing array on his mountain-like back starts glowing. Since he's been called out, there's no point in playing pretend anymore. The Underworld Emperor's killing array flares up, manifesting phantom mountains in the air. But our boy Li Xian is still just chilling on the turtle's back, casually watching the array that's supposed to seal him. So you're gonna use these mountains to crush me? Bold move. The old turtle roars, spitting out a mouthful of essence blood to overclock the killing array. The Phantom Mountains solidify, slamming down with the weight of 1,000 units. He's finally going for the kill. The old turtle immediately pulls out his ultimate trump card. The ancient runes on his shell are his ultimate shield and his deadliest spear. He's confident that since the red flood dragon hasn't revealed his true form, he can't tank this array. He really thought he caught the MC lacking, since our boy walked straight into the trap in human form. He just needs to stall this red dragon for a second to finish the sacrifice. A dragon's bloodline is more than enough to wake up whatever's lurking inside that coffin. Then, the figure on the turtle's back stands up, chanting an ancient scripture that condenses into a blade sharper than anything on earth. He grips that sharp aura like he's holding a golden longsword and gives it a casual swing. A golden tide washes over the old turtle, ripping the killing array to shreds and slicing clean through the turtle's massive back. His internal organs are exposed, blood spilling everywhere despite that unbreakable shell. The cut is so smooth it literally looks like a mirror. The light instantly fades from the old turtle's eyes. That one swing was basically like deleting a mountain and sniping his life force at the same time. As the golden blade dissolves into light, Li Xian watches it vanish from his palm and just shakes his head. Bro is really disappointed. The 5 elements slaughter art, metal form. This is the real deal, a supreme killing technique that's straight up terrifying. Too bad our boy can't even hold on to this condensed edge for long. Once it leaves his body, it's basically use it or lose it before it dissolves into nothing. He forged this when he left Taihang, literally weaving dawn's first light with the setting sun. The energy is so unstable he doesn't even dare to keep it in his body for too long. Honestly, if this old turtle hadn't pulled up right now, our boy would have just let this lethal energy dissipate into thin air. That would have been a major L, since refining twilight light is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. Ever since he copped the 5-element slaughter art, he's been hunting for a breakthrough in this metal form. He finally hit it this morning. Who knows when he'd get another chance like this. So he's actually low-key grateful this old turtle offered himself up as a target. Time to use him as a sacrifice. Blood fills the water, getting sucked into that creepy coffin like a vacuum as the moonlight hits different. The dying turtle is making his final play. This was his whole plan for baiting the red flood dragon here. The coffin starts glowing, and these transparent dragonfish patterns begin swimming around the surface. The old turtle has been simping for this coffin for ages, finally sparking a tiny connection. His plan was simple: use the array on his back to stall, then let whatever's in the coffin delete the red flood dragon. But that one metal form slash was too cracked. It straight up shattered the turtle's lifeline in one hit. Moonlight pierces the darkness, making the coffin turn more and more transparent. Those semi-transparent dragonfish are now swimming out of the patterns. They're tiny like regular fish, but they've got horns and tails like legit baby dragons. They're out here hunting for a snack in the dark, and their dead eyes finally show some joy. These nameless things are absolute menaces that wipe out any life force they touch. Usually the turtle stays far away whenever he lets these things out, and just stays low and hides. Once they've had their fill, they head back and feed all that stolen life force to the inner coffin. After all that grinding, the seal on the inner coffin is finally starting to crack, and just like the outer layer, it's starting to go full transparent. It just needs one more high-tier great demon to be the main course. Then he can finally pop the lid on this thing, and claim some legendary primordial treasure from the ancient eras. That's the only reason he was camping in these waters. Bro thought he was dealing with a mere snake, but he accidentally poked a literal flood dragon. That ancient opportunity completely blinded his judgment. Ever since he sacrificed the very waters he called home for a century, his greed became a literal bottomless pit. At this range, if those dragon carp decide to swarm, it's game over. Both him and the red worm are straight up cooked. Catching the scent of fresh blood, the dragon carp swarm starts closing in like they haven't eaten in decades. The blinding glow from their scales reflects in Li Xian's eyes. It looks like a cosmic cycle of the sun and moon rising all at once. These fish form a shimmering death vortex, completely surrounding the old turtle. The smell of blood is driving them wild, but they're too terrified to actually make a move. Why? Because the absolute unit standing on the turtle's back strikes fear into their very souls. They don't want any smoke with him. The old turtle is coping hard, thinking maybe his sacrifice actually worked. He really thinks these dragon carp finally recognize him and won't just turn him into a snack like some nameless fodder. But wait, Li Xianchen realizes the truth. These fish aren't being respectful, they're just straight up ducking him. He plants his foot on the half-dead body of the old turtle. Suddenly, that massive red unit surges into the air. Its iron scales look cold, heavy, and honestly terrifying. The red worm uses its massive tail to wrap around the turtle like a literal boa constrictor, and then it just yeets him even closer to the coffin. The dragon carp swarm follows like a flood of starlight, lighting up the whole place. Li Xian can still see the parts of the turtle the swarm hasn't reached yet. Its muscles are twitching, and its soul is basically fading into the void. It's getting devoured by the school, one bite at a time. These fish are so efficient that not even a single drop of blood chi escapes. The old turtle is completely wiped from existence. Not even a single bone is left. Talk about being fodder. Having finished their mukbang, the dragon carp line up to head back to the coffin. But instead of going straight back, they take a little detour through the depths. They specifically swim past our massive red worm and give a little nod of respect. It's like they're thanking this top-tier alpha for providing such a premium meal. The coffin turns completely transparent as the iron chains finally drop. The dragon carps settle back onto the surface of the coffin and transform into rows of incredibly detailed ancient runes. The red worm swirls through the water, closing the distance. Now that the coffin is clear, the aura inside is exposed for everyone to see. Turns out it's just a dead object. Our boy's luck isn't that cracked today. First, he finds himself in a spatial rift, then he encounters ancestor-level beings. Could this thing actually be some legendary ancient artifact? Those massive golden pupils are locked onto the coffin. From behind the seal, a pair of crimson phoenix eyes stares back, sizing up our boy in his red flood dragon form. Chapter 30, Qing Diao. Deep in the abyss, these two powerhouses have a stare-down that feels like a glitch in time itself. Inside is a waifu in green robes with flowing black hair and eyes that literally scream ancient boss. She's just chillin', analyzing this massive red flood dragon like it's her first time seeing a unit this big. His golden pupils are glowing like spotlights, lighting up her face in the dark. She shoves the lid open, basically slapping aside millions of years of primordial history. This ancient queen just stepped back into reality. High-tier arrays are swirling around her slim figure, pumping her full of insane life force. So that's the play. The dragonfish were farming mobs this whole time just to wake her up. Now she's just hovering in the abyss like it's nothing. The water currents are making her long hair flow like she's in a cinematic trailer. Wearing those ancient green robes, her eyes are glued to Li Tixian. She hasn't blinked once. "You're not from Kunlun. What's a monster like you doing in a place like this?" she asks, her voice low but heavy. Li Tixian relaxes his scales. He's not sensing any kill intent from this girl. This isn't Kunlun, it's just a hidden rift under the Yellow River. Our boy speaks up, figuring an ancient beast would know what a dimensional rift is. Not Kunlun. Her expression shifts instantly. Then what happened to the real Kunlun? Li Tixian stays silent, but his massive body creates a wake that almost knocks her over. Bro, she just woke up after Ian's with her cultivation nuked. She's basically a level 1 newbie right now. Chill out, he says. I've got some questions of my own. Li Tixian's voice rumbles like thunder. He knows this girl is a literal walking encyclopedia of the primordial era. She sees right through him, but she's cool about it. A Yang God Realm demon king. To think the future generations could produce a monster like you. It seems the 9 provinces haven't completely croaked yet. There's still a spark of life left. She's staring deep into his golden eyes. The 9 provinces? Li Tix is confused. Is that what they used to call the world? She looks at him, waiting for an answer. Then she mumbles to herself, maybe it's for the best that the name 9 provinces is dead and buried. Everything that was meant to vanish is already gone. The old world in this current era, they've got zero connection now. The sadness in the girl's eyes ebbs and flows like a tide before she locks it down and regains her cool. I am Qing Diao, the divine messenger serving under the Queen Mother of the west of the Kunlun Mountains. As she speaks, her vibe pulls a complete 180, transforming from a fragile kid into a straight-up deity in a heartbeat. Crimson Dragon, spill it. Why are you here? I've only got one request. Help me get back to Kunlun. This pocket dimension has to be buried deep within the Kunlun Forbidden Zone. If I'm here, we're definitely inside the Holy Mountain. Something's gone sideways, and I can't even fathom what happened. There's no way I'm just sitting around doing nothing while the mountain is in chaos. The literal myths of Kunlun are manifesting right in front of Li Jixian's eyes. Absolute cinema. The divine messenger of the goddess of Kunlun herself stands before him. Our boy realizes he's just stumbled upon a secret that's been buried for eons, including the mystery of those stars lighting up the sky. Looking at Qing Diao, everything confirms it. The ultimate secrets are hidden deep within those ancient holy peaks of Kunlun. Our crimson dragon mutters a chant, and suddenly a massive green bronze tripod manifests above his head, radiating ancient life force. Your life force is cooked, but this heaven-shrouding tripod can keep you from flatlining. Right now, Qing Diao is basically on life support, surviving on the scraps of vitality the dragon's been feeding her. But Li Jixian can feel her life force draining away like a battery at 1%. He shows her some ancient records of the current world. Take a look at these archives and tell me, what the hell happened back in your day? And what's the deal with the world right now? If you're heading to Kunlun, we're rolling together. The girl stares at that green bronze tripod completely stunned. She realizes something and her voice starts shaking. The 5 elements slaying art? How the hell do you know a technique like that? Wait, now Li Jixian is the one caught off guard. This ancient sutra was a gift from Taihang Mountain. He didn't think it was on the level of those primordial god-tier manuals. But obviously she knows there are barely any manuals of this insane rank left in existence. Qing Diao just shakes her head. I can't believe a supreme ancient sutra like this is still floating around in the 9 provinces. It's unthinkable. She thought the fact that this era could even produce a spirit mutation was wild enough. That was shocking enough, but a flood dragon flexing a supreme ancient sutra, that's actually broken. She gives our crimson dragon a dead serious look, before suddenly letting out a soft laugh like ice finally cracking on a spring stream. She's genuinely hyped from the bottom of her heart that a beast, maybe in another 1,000 years, the 9 provinces will finally birth another one of those legendary 10 heavenly species. The Yellow River surges from the west, carving through Kunlun and roaring across 10,000 miles, with a massive red flood dragon weaving through the waves. We're deep in the western plateau now, where humans are basically non-existent and the no man's land vibe is real. The sky-shrouding cauldron is hovering above, completely ghosting any prying eyes from the outside world. Our boy doesn't even need to stay low-key like he did back in those crowded city sectors. He's closing in on the source of the ancient Yellow River itself. Out here, this land won't cause any mass panic among the normies, or make them wonder if he's actually the Taihang Red Flood Dragon. As he slithers through, the only thing he actually has to sweat are the eyes in the sky. But with the sky-shrouding cauldron pumping out that mystical energy, he's basically invisible. Not even a satellite could spot his massive unit from above. Meanwhile, Qingdiao is just chilling cross-legged on top of the cauldron. She's got an ancient scripture in hand, speed reading through it like she's on 2x playback. She's downloading all this modern info and syncing it with the memories from her own era. And honestly, the more she reads, the more she's low-key losing it. She can't wrap her head around what went down in the future. How did the 9 provinces manage to catch a massive dub and rise again? If her generation back then had even a sliver of a chance, those supreme powerhouses wouldn't have had to open up all those pocket dimensions and then completely cut ties between those subworlds and the 9 provinces. We're talking about sparks, the seeds of hope that the Supremes hid away in those countless minor realms. These eternal goats had never felt so utterly powerless in their entire lives. They were supposed to be the invincible kings who pacified the stars and ruled the entire universe. Wait, what did you say those 10 heavenly species were again? The Red Flood Dragon sends a telepathic ping, the 10 most busted mythical races in the entire Star Sea. An average member of these races hits the True One realm, humanity's peak, the moment they hit puberty. Plus, every single one of them is basically an invincible cheat code among their own rank. Qingdiao replies without even stopping her speed-reading grind. Li Xian remembers what she told him before. Qingdiao nods while our boy, the Flood Dragon, is basically holding a supreme ancient scripture. If you don't get yourself folded early, you might actually end up as a big boss among the 10 species. But for now, anything from the deep Star Sea would probably spawn kill you on sight. Do you have any idea what happened to this world to make it start recovering like this? Li Xian just shakes his head. It's way too early to be worrying about that. Needs to figure out the hidden secrets of this world first. No clue. The girl gazes out at the endless mountain ranges, her eyes looking clear but totally unreadable. Our era isn't just some dusty hidden history buried in old scrolls. Because to the humans of today, that era is straight up mythology. And let's be real, you can't exactly fit myths and legends into your standard history books. Maybe some peerless genius in the future will actually pull this world back from the brink of total collapse. As she whispered that, Li Xian couldn't help but think of the divine dance at the imperial altar that was etched into the very fabric of heaven and earth. But if Kyushu was really as cracked and overpowered as you say, then how did it end up in this pathetic state? No one in their right mind would dare provoke such a thriving ancient world, much less watch an entire great realm literally shatter into pieces. Can those legendary supreme beings really pull off something that insane? These supreme beings she's talking about are at the Illumination realm, the absolute peak of the Star Sea where a single breath can summon a massive storm, and with a flick of their wrist, they can literally snuff out the stars. Creation and destruction all within a single thought. Just thinking about that kind of power gives Li Xian the chills. We used to think the same way, she said. But the truth behind the fall, only the Supremes actually know. Too bad the Supremes of Kyushu kicked the bucket millions of years ago. You can flip through every ancient scroll in existence, and you won't find a single trace of them. The girl's expression went dark. Considering she was a messenger for the Queen Mother of the West back at the Mountain of Myth, she probably looked up to those Kyushu Supremes, or maybe they were even her old homies. Just some old acquaintances from back in the day. Li Xian stayed silent as the massive illusory mountain range began to loom over them. Suddenly, a massive red beast rose up from the depths. It soared straight out of the river into the sky. Water cascaded off its iron scales, drenching the earth below. It looked like a sudden downpour of mist. Chapter 31, the Kunlun Divine Mountain, the Path of Rivers and Mountains. Ascending Kunlun's gates, 10,000 miles of snowy peaks sit high above the clouds. Looking down as stars rise and set, Chia patrols the high heavens. A massive green bronze cauldron was hovering right over our boy's head. And there was Qingdiao, sitting right on top of that sky-covering cauldron, staring intensely at the reality of Kunlun. Could this really just be an illusory shadow beneath the starry sky? Bro, even I can't believe this is supposed to be the legendary Mount Kunlun. Our best girl can't help but feel emotional seeing this. Compared to her memories, the difference between this place and the real Kunlun is like comparing a tiny firefly to the freaking moon. As they approach the range, Li Xian stops dead in his tracks, sensing something is straight up wrong with these ancient peaks. Wait, did you notice it too? The girl shifts her gaze toward Kunlun. The real Kunlun Mountains are currently draped in darkness, and dawn is just around the corner. The endless snowy peaks sit under a pale moon, and our boy, in his crimson flood dragon form, decides not to just dive headfirst into the range. He spots a domain, a massive energy field descending from the clouds of ancient Kunlun, locking down the entire world below. This isn't just the mountain's natural recovery. Someone is manually gatekeeping this place. Best girl knits her brows while Li Xian enters big brain mode to assess the situation. The vibe here is exactly like what he dealt with back at Mount Taihang. Except the roles are reversed. Now, he's the outsider trying to breach the defenses. Back then, he could summon a torrential downpour to cover the entire mountain range. The domain covering Kunlun right now has that same menacing energy as his storm, which means there might be a monster just like him lurking deep inside those peaks. This Kunlun domain is so thick that even he can't see through it, and he's not about to Leroy Jenkins his way in, especially since dawn is so close. The stars are already starting to fade out, so instead of hunting for a path now, he decides to wait until the next sunset. The massive crimson dragon tail slams into the earth. As those maple red scales scatter like a storm in the sky, two figures emerge on the vast western plateau. One in green, one in black. Honestly, they're looking like a total power couple. They head toward the majestic Kunlun, chasing the last bit of starlight toward the west. Wait, you're saying you could actually summon a storm over the entire Taihang range? The girl in green tilts her head like she's just heard the most cap thing ever. It was basically the same as the situation we're in now. Our boy in black just acts casual about it like it's no big deal. Bro, be for real, you're only at the Yang spirit realm. The Qingdiao is losing it. The Taihang range is one of the rarest ancient dragon veins in all of Kyushu. Even if Kyushu is in slumber, there's no way a Yang spirit, but I actually pulled it off, just like those high-tier beings whose domains are massive enough to swallow all of Kunlun. Our girl falls into deep thought. The entities from Mount Taihang call you their mountain god. Li Xian catches Qingdiao spacing out. Yo, you got any leads or what? Zero. Best girl shakes her head. In my era, we didn't have these mountain gods or whatever deities you're talking about. Plus, why would those ancient divine peaks even need a god to run them? Those mountains are literally the OG gods themselves. Qingdiao catches up and gets right in Li Xian's face, giving him the ultimate ocular pat-down. Her phoenix eyes are wide open, looking like she's trying to count every single eyelash on our boy's face while her last two brain cells work overtime. What are you doing? Li Xian asks. This girl's lived for hundreds of thousands of years at least. If you count the time she spent sealed in a coffin, we're talking tens of millennia. But man, her personality is still surprisingly lively. Our boy thinks that maybe some cultivators are just built different, keeping that pure MC energy from start to finish. I'm wondering if you're actually a flood dragon, like some ancient life form just using a dragon body as a vessel. So you're saying I'm literally Mount Taihang itself? I mean, it's not impossible. So what's the move now, boss? The longer we wait, the more things can go sideways, but we gotta stay patient to win big.